Good evening. I call the City Council, December 17th, meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Councillor Credo. Councillor DeJeuffoy.
Present.
Councillor Horn.
Yes.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Here.
Councillor Fontenot.
Present.
Councillor Herman.
Present.
Councillor Karolian.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Councillor Sullivan.
Present.
Councillor Turner. Present. Councillor Walker.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Hammond is excused. Mayor Callahan.
Present. We have a quorum. We're going to a non-public and non-meeting. The non-public meeting is land, RSA 91A3 2D. And the non-meeting is consultation with legal counsel, which is 91A2 B as in boy. Accept the motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Councillor DeJeuffoy.
Yes.
Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Councillor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councillor Horn.
Yes.
Councillor Walker.
Yes.
Councillor Herman.
Yes.
Councillor Fontenot.
Yes.
Councillor Turner.
Yes.
Councillor Credo. Councillor Richardson.
Yes.
Councillor Hammond is excused. Councillor Karolian.
Yes.
Mayor Callahan.
Yes. Okay, the meeting will be adjourned and we'll come out.
Repaired rather than replaced. That includes doors, any removing of walls, any other historic features like ceilings, that type of stuff. So for their project with the 55 hotel rooms that they're looking to add, they decided not to go ahead with that because it would add time and money to their project. So they're going for the 5 years, and the Economic Development Department does support those 5 years. So we'll go ahead and allow anybody to come up and speak on the 79E, and then Mr. Gerton will come up and give you a short presentation on this project as well.
Does any counselors have any questions for the Economic Development team before we turn it over to the public hearing? So what happens is you get a presentation, council gets asked questions, then we'll have the public comments. Somebody have any comments? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, so how it works at a public hearing, you have to be a Rochester resident and/or a business owner with connection to the city. So please come up, state your name and address in Rochester or the business. Yes?
5 minutes.
No, it's not, a public
No.
hearing is not limited to 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Good evening, Christopher Rice, 10 Rod Road. Looked over the application for the 79E at 95 South Main Street. I think it's a good project. 5 years is appropriate, I think, for what they're trying to do. I don't quite know if we can approve a 79E for being just solely commercial status. It doesn't sway my opinion on the matter whatsoever, but it's something that I think could be asked, whether or not the 79E can be covered under just commercial. I believe it can, but might want to just inquire about that. Other than that, I think my only other concern would be the parking situation. I know they have a huge kind of zigzag lot behind the building, and I know that doesn't weigh into your decision of 79E being granted or not, but that's my only concern is the number of parking spots. Other than that, yeah, I'd approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Tom Kaczynski from Whitehall Road. I'm also a state representative for District 5 who proudly never voted for a tax increase for his constituents. But the thing is that if you guys vote for this 79E, you will be voting for a tax increase for your constituents. There's no doubt about it. This really comes down to corporate welfare. I realize it's available. It's available through the state makes it available, but you don't have to approve it. I'm happy to see a new hotel in town. I'm happy to see any business increase in the city. I'm a businessman, but I don't want to pay for it. You know, if you want to make a move, you wait till you got the cash and you make the move. Now, this property is assessed for, I guess, approximately $2.5 million. So if there's $3.5 million in improvements, no tax is paid on that $3.5 million, I guess 5 years. So the city didn't reduce spending that amount, so the spending is there. Who makes up the difference? The rest of the taxpayers. So they're put in the position of, I guess, being a partner in this business, but I don't think they're really going to be getting dividend checks. And that's not really fair. Now, there's been a hard year for a lot of people, and you hear all across the state people are complaining about the reevaluations and being able to afford their tax bill. So I think any amount that you increase somebody's taxes is not good. I mean, we got bills late this year. I guess we're going to get a New Year's present when they come in. Maybe it'll go down. Now, this is supposed to benefit us, absorbing this cost, having the citizens pay for it. So say like an example would be a couple other 79Es we have in the city. The Howard building and the Gargiulo building would share the same parking lot. So that Howard's got 9 years break on the taxes, and they pay on a $190,000 valuation for that property. It's pretty wild. So I go to church in the morning on Sunday, and I went by that parking lot last couple of weeks, and I looked in there and I said, that lot's pretty full. So I spun around after, and I saw about 15 empty spots in that whole big parking lot. And then this week I did the same thing, and there was maybe 20. So basically, you got a lot that's, unless there was a lot of people that got drunk and left their cars there, which I doubt, you're basically supplying free parking for the apartments in addition to the fantastic tax break they get. So now we got a parking shortage, which leads to a city council decision to lease the Ben Franklin building for several $100,000 a year and then pave it. So I'd like somebody to show that on paper, how that benefits me or any other citizens in Rochester. I think it's fine. This was supposed to be used to attract businesses to Rochester. And, you know, you got to wonder, when are the welfare payments going to end? I hear people talking the praises of the city. Well, if it's that great, do we have to pay somebody, every business that comes in here, we got to pay them off? I'd really like to see an end to this, and I hope you people would stand up on this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for sharing that the City of Rochester adopted the provisions of such Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive Program by 79E by the resolution of the City Council in October 7th of 2008. And since you adopted the provision in 2008, have you considered unadopting those provisions? We are in hyperinflation, and this is not the time to be taking tax relief from businesses and moving the money around so that all existing taxpayers absorb it. As you know, we have already spent our budget, and that spending must be paid back. Would you have unadopted them, or could you simply just not approve each project? I'm not sure how it works. The people of Rochester suffer every time you grant the requested tax relief. In this instance, for 5 years, since we the people pay the taxes for these businesses coming to Rochester under 79E. Every time you give a discount or a tax relief, we the people end up paying these beautiful, generous gifts you impose. I know for some, utilizing 79E is a priority and a passion, and I know our finance department is a whiz with numbers. Have you ever considered, or is there a way for those who really want to grant tax deferments, like this one, that those tax deferments be paid by those taxpayers who approve them? Like, can you itemize it out? Because that way, both sides can win, you know, those that want to promote the 79E and those that don't want to pay for it. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I know we have really smart financial people here, so that's a serious question. I'm sorry that these are tough questions, but they're sincere. I'm not sure if the property was purchased at a bargain as a result of all these non-public meetings for land. There's so many of them that we have, and I'm not sure what's going on. It kind of makes us look like we're into the real estate business, but really the focus is keeping the tax burden low. So if we can focus on that, that would be great. Also, the December 5th codes and ordinances that Rochester had announced an assistant city attorney that's going to be joining that committee. Is this an increase in Rochester's government?
Let's just focus on this is specific to 95 South Main.
Right. Well, doesn't that attorney help in this situation, the 79E, or no?
The legal staff will have a point in it, yes.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking that question. So I'm not sure if this is an increase in government, which again is another increase of our taxes, which the 79E is as well, or if this is just a shared responsibility having the assistant attorney. I wanted to thank you so much for putting in the packet for the 79E on page 15. It really helped reviewing the law, the RSA law, and all the details of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does somebody want to turn the light on? Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. Just a quick comment. How is this property assessed and at what value? Is it the current assessment, if you pulled the property tax card today? Is it the new assessment that our next tax bill, which I guess it's going to be for our New Year's Day present? Do we know if this was a 1031 tax exchange? How do we declare this value? And how, when we go to assess for the property taxes? Because in each one of those different scenarios could provide a very wide fluctuating range of the relief that they will get. And I just wanted to echo the fact that in the last few 79Es that I'm aware of, there's always been a residential component to them. And this looks like it's 100% commercial. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, looks like it for the 79E number 3. Turn over to you, the Economic Development Team.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and ladies and gentlemen of the City Council. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is John Gertnell from Cardinal Development. My wife and I own Cardinal Development, and we, in the process, we purchased the building at 95 South Main Street. A year or so ago, sorry?
Get close to the mic.
I'm sorry. A year or so ago, we found the building finally. We've been looking for many years to find a property in this area, in this market, and the right building came up with parking, a historic-looking building, which we prefer, and the right area in town, and the building, obviously 95 South Main Street. Every time we come up there to check on the project, all we're doing right now is doing some clean out. We get so excited because the building just looks amazing from the outside, and we want that look to stay the same. which is what we like to do with all our other property. It was nice, we'd pull down Wakefield Street now to pull up to City Hall to see all the lights downtown. It looks amazing here, which is very exciting to see the changes that Rochester has seen over the last 10, 20 years. So we're proud to be a part of that. We look forward to working with the city. It takes, the benefit to the public is it takes a lot to run a hotel or a restaurant, anything in the hospitality business. Everyone thinks it's just real estate, but a hotel is a living ecosystem, really. It takes a lot of people to operate that hotel. It's the local people depend on it for weddings, funerals, corporate people to come into town, which what everybody wants is more corporations coming to Business Park, and they need a place to stay. Then you have technicians showing up to work on equipment for different various operations, and you have visiting nurses, visiting doctors, and there's a lack of that supply right now. And right now, they do need somewhere to stay for short-term housing, I should say, because we have other locations and nurses come up for 2 to 3 months at a time sometimes, because local hospitals are in shortage of nurses and doctors. So we feel inflation is affecting all of us right now. It is horrible, and our budget was one place, and every time we turn around, the budget keeps going up. So without this, it's very difficult. But over time, though, that building will appraise, and within 5 years, once it's stabilized and fully occupied, that building will appraise for approximately $10 million. So at that point, in the first 2 years, we'll make up for the 5 years that we saved on the taxes, which we need that assistance in the beginning helps us make that project reality. So.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Gurdon? Well, okay, I go ahead.
Can you just repeat what you said? I think I heard you say that property is going to be evaluated for $10 million.
Once it's stabilized, that'll be
And you said you will make back the taxpayers' money in the first 2 years. Is that what I heard you say?
It'll be approximately, on the tax rate, yes. With the first couple of years, that 5 years will come back. So.
I think it's important that we make that very clear because we've heard people up here talking a little bit about how it is going to be a burden for taxpayers, and I think it will be for 7 years, right? But what I think I hear you saying, and I've heard, which is why we love 79E, people make more money and our taxpayers actually get more relief after that 7-year period. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is, yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gurdon, when would you start construction, and how long would it be till it was done?
We have our last planning meeting on February 3rd, I believe it is, and right after that, we'll pull a building permit, and we'll start construction. We tend to be open within 10 to 11 months from start of construction.
Okay, I take it you're in the hospitality business, you've built other hotels?
Yes, we have, yeah.
Can you mind telling us where you've built them?
We own a property in Newburyport, Massachusetts. It's historic buildings. That same scenario, we didn't have parking there, but it was the right location, and we expanded that property. We have locations in Mount Sunapee, Ellsworth, Maine, Orono, Maine, Claremont. We're working a similar project to buy a building, convert to a hotel. So we've done many. We own other industrial building and commercial buildings also. So we're very versed in construction. So
Thank you. Councilor DeJavois.
Thank you, Your Honor. Does your company operate the hotels yourself, or do you hire a third party to do it?
yeah, our management company is New England Hospitality that we operate. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned it a little bit there, and I think somebody from the public did. Your estimates of the parking needed and what's available, do you know how much?
On a full night, we have 55 rooms, plus there'll be 2 people on duty, so we need 57 parking spots, so there's 95.
95. And is that shared, or is that all for the property?
There's 6 or 7 spots that have an easement for the last house down at the end, so.
Yeah.
So we still have more than enough parking.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Councilor Turner.
Do you have an estimate of how many jobs that will be provided by this project?
Yeah, there'll be 15 to 20 jobs, yes, yeah, time it's all done, so. Local people, obviously we need local people to work there because they know the area, so.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it.
No, we are too, thank you for your time.
Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, we move on from that. Resolution to amend the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds for fiscal year 2025. Ms. Kay Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. We are looking to amend this year's CDBG Annual Action Plan, which has been approved by HUD. We are looking to amend it for this year, $23,982.75. That was available funds that had not been assigned to any projects. So we're looking to now use that for the senior center bathrooms at the James Foley Community Center. Additional funding will be taken out of the job loan for the remainder of that project, which is number 4 on our agenda tonight. This is a substantial amendment because funding from the entitlement and the job loan will just go on one action plan. It doesn't have to be multiple amendments like we did earlier this year. It is just going to be the one amendment.
Okay, thank you. Any councilors have questions for Ms. Wright? Okay, thank you. Now it's up to public. Any comments? Public hearing? Okay. There is none, so we'll move on to 4. Resolution for supplemental appropriation for the public buildings capital improvement utilizing community development block grants, job loan funds in the amount of $80,142. Again, that's you.
It's me again. So we are looking to use $80,142 from our job loan fund. The job loan is part of the CDBG funding that we have available. We have roughly a little over $300,000 available right now. Because of that, it has affected the city's timeliness, which is why we're looking to start utilizing some of those fundings for some other projects while we wait for some applications to come in. Right now, this would still leave a large amount available in the job loan. It wouldn't really harm it, and it would assist us in ensuring that we'll reach timeliness this coming up year.
Thank you. I have one question for you. It's more for the for public information, people that are watching on TV and the folks in the audience. Can you just explain where the funding comes from the Community Development Block Grant Entitlement Funds?
Yes, so CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant Funds, comes from HUD. We are an entitlement community. We are one of 5 in the state. We receive it every year. That funding can go towards, 15% can be used for public service agencies, like this coming up year was Waypoint received some funding, Share Fund received some funding, but then there is also the public facilities aspect of it, which these funds will be used for public facilities that will assist people within the city, low to moderate area income individuals, multiple locations. I mean, these projects will mainly be in the community center, which is used by everybody in the city.
Yeah, the point I want to get across, these are federal funds, not local taxpayer dollars. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, hearing none. Anyone from the public want to come up relating to 4? Okay, we'll move on to 5. Yes, oh, come on up. So I'm sorry. Okay, good catch.
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. I might not have heard this correctly, but I think Kay said something about it's used, the federal portion that I guess she's targeting more towards the community center so that all the citizens in the community would have access to this. But was there a piece of this that goes to a lot of low and moderate income housing? And if so, I'm just going to lob the bomb. Can any of this be used at Amazon Park to help out those poor people? Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any comments? Ms. Wright, if you would just want to respond, that's fine. You can wrap it up.
CDBG funding can be used for that. Unfortunately, the city doesn't receive a large amount. So with that, we try and utilize it for smaller projects. If people are interested, we do open up applications every year. We announce it on the city website. We announce it through the Rochester Post. Applications this year have closed for this coming up FY26. If a group is interested, they do have to be a nonprofit. That is a requirement of the city, or it has to be a city project. So it has to affect, the city has to be involved in the project.
Got it. Thank you. Good. Thanks for explaining it. Thanks for the comment. Number 5, amendment to Chapter 260-33 of the general ordinances relative to water rates and fee schedules. Director Sullivan.
Yeah, what's in your packet is the final proposed rate schedule for the water fees, also the water service-related fees, which have been raised in a long, long time, in addition to the sewer fees and the related sewer service fees. The UAB reviewed this projections and proposal. The Finance Committee also reviewed it, so now it's here for hopefully final adoption and implementation. One of the things that you can do is, because we are always billing in arrears, you could make this a rate change effective March 1st, and that would allow the first bill for these new fees wouldn't be until the June bill run.
Any questions for Director Sullivan? Thank you. Okay, we'll turn it over to the public hearing.
Christopher Rice, 10 Rod Road. If it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, my comments that I'm about to read are both about the water and the sewer rates that you're going to be hearing about next. So in the interest of time, I'd like to just read them all now, and that way you don't have to hear me speak again, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So Director Sullivan kind of took some of my thunder away, but I'm here tonight to express my concerns regarding the proposed water and sewer rate increases that are going to take effect in the ordinance effective immediately. That's my biggest concern that I have with how the ordinance is written, is that they'll take effect immediately. There's no date in there. So people are going to be getting their bills March, and you're talking about I pulled some reports, and you're talking about a $50 to $75 per quarter increase in water and sewer bills for the residents of Rochester. I think that it would be appropriate if it was tailored to the June 1st bill, and that language was put into the ordinances for both the water and the sewer rates. You know, we got to think about our blue-collar workers, police, fire, EMTs, teachers. They all live here in this community, and they're the backbone of this community. So we need to be looking at those hardworking individuals who dedicate their lives to keeping our city safe and thriving, and maybe feeling this pinch of these rising costs. Another thing that I'd like to see put into this ordinance, it wouldn't hamstring anybody, but you could easily put into this ordinance a provision that says that you, the city council, must review these rates annually, so that way we aren't seeing a 10 or 15% increase like we've heard testimony from the city administration, because we haven't raised these rates in so many years. We'll make it a condition in the ordinance that you, the city council, and by you I mean the future bodies of the city council, every January or February have to review the user rates. So that way, if the enterprise fund isn't doing well and we need to raise rates, well, it's in our ordinances. You must do it. If you don't, then, well, 5 years goes by, we haven't raised rates, and you're hearing from a bunch of disgruntled constituents that call you up and say, "Why did my rates go up by $100? That's all that I really have to say. My comments were tailored to both water and sewer, so just keep that in mind, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol Petrosevich again. Mine also, if it's okay, Mayor, to talk about both the water and the sewer.
Great, thank you.
I'm thankful that you worked so hard. I could tell by how they itemized out the details of this. But I am asking that you haven't raised it, that you've said, so let's hold off. Let's let at least 1 year of the economy getting stronger before we do any increases. I love the solution that was presented tonight with holding off until the June bill, and I love the solution that was also mentioned about changing the wording to make it reviewed annually. That's totally wonderful, but I'm just adding, if you could also not increase 10% and not increase 15% for the sewer until after at least 1 year, so we can try to get our economy back on track. Thank you.
There's another, Mr. Sullivan, anything you'd like to add that you heard?
I don't have any comments, unless anyone has any
I-
questions.
A quick question. So when this ordinance goes out, it's going to say effective March 1st, but the first bill will be June 1st, correct?
Yeah, there is no, the way it's presented to you, the council has the latitude to put in the effective date that you want the new rates to go in. So that's why it was left that way, open-ended, because I anticipated you might want to set the effective date, which is a past practice of other councils, to set the effective date. So if you move the effective date of the rates to March 1st, because we bill 90 days in arrears, the impact of the rates will not show up into the user's water and sewer bill until that June billing.
Thank you. All right, hearing no other questions, move on to 6. Amendment to Chapter 260-34-B of the General Ordinance of the City of Rochester relative to the water fund service fees. Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, these are the associated fees that are for a whole host of service-type activities. And a lot of them aren't in line with the actual cost of sending a service person out or the actual cost of doing any service work. They haven't been updated in a long, long time. They haven't been updated since I've been around. And the more you offset some of your ancillary service costs, that can help keep a stabilization effect on the actual user rates. So in the recommendation for water, I have itemized out what we are, subparagraphs of that 260-34B, what the recommendation is to be changed, what is being eliminated. There's a lot of movement in this, but in the end, the biggest one is going to a $65 an hour service work fee, instead of the flat rate fee that we've had for many years, and in some cases was $30 an hour, or $30 flat rate to send somebody out. So we really need to get more in line with the cost of what it takes to manage the service department and manage the service people and do all those types of things. So all this does is put those in line, and there's no change. The biggest one is no change on the service development fee. So you can see in that schedule on page 68 how it works out. So we'd be asking you to adopt that schedule and all those amendments.
Questions? Okay. Hearing none, any public comment?
Christopher Rice, 10 Rod Road. I like this. I mean, gets us more in line with how it's done, on a per hour basis. Jobs can be complex. Again, just touch point on the implementation point that I would ask when you close public hearing. If you already have a project that is approved by the planning board and they've already started construction, does that project fall under the old rates, or is it the new rates when they come to install, say, the water meter or whatever work might be done? Just something to ask, because if we already have, I know we had problems up at a development off of 202. I don't want the city to not have asked that question and we have a developer who then fights us. Well, I started my development X date, I should be grandfathered to the X prices, not the new prices. Just something to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other yes.
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. I think it's, and I could be wrong, but I think it's been at least 2, perhaps 3 years before the utility board has been back before the city council to review all of this. And I'm just kind of curious if any members of the utility board commission are here tonight and could expound upon this a little further. And I would like to see this kind of like the previous water sewer rate increases, that it be reviewed on an annual basis so that we, as the taxpayers, are not paying for the developer's costs. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sullivan, any final comments?
No, sir.
Moving on to number 7, right? Good. Amendment to Chapter 200-33 of the General Ordinances of the City of Rochester relative to the wastewater rates and fee schedule.
This, again, it's the same process on the water, on the sewer fees that we ran with the review of the water fees, reviewed with the Utility Advisory Board, reviewed with the Finance Committee, and now we're here looking for adoption of the rate increase for the wastewater fees in the schedule provided in the packet.
Any questions for Director Sullivan? Councilor DeJarbois.
I guess maybe the obvious one is why 15% for sewer versus 10 for water?
The sewer fund is undergoing extreme high levels of capital improvements. I believe last year there was $9 million in the FY25 budget adopted for new sewer initiatives. There is approximately 28 million or so of projects, bonded projects that are authorized but not issued yet. And this isn't even taking into consideration the new plant that will come online in the near future. So this is keeping up with the things that we're trying to do and get the rate to start escalating up. So when we do have the plant come online, it won't be a huge, it's going to be a big increase when that does happen. But we do have to get to a more frequent schedule of updating the user fees. So that's the reason. Right now, the sewer fund is not in a good financial position in terms of what it owes the general fund in terms of cash. So we need to work on that. You might be hearing more about that from when our FY24 audit is completed. But it's a capital-intensive operation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to follow up on that. It was similar to what I was going to ask. What happens if we don't increase that rate? You mentioned the enterprise fund and the general fund. The general fund makes up that difference that goes in the enterprise fund. Is that what you're saying?
At the end of the day, if the enterprise funds can't support themselves, the general fund has to make up any shortfalls, particularly with the debt service. So that would be any failure or inability for one of the enterprise funds to maintain its, particularly the level of capital, that would then become a general fund property taxation issue is what we're trying to avoid at all costs. And we're trying to get there, and hopefully with increasing in rates, will help dramatically with that. So we're not in that situation.
That's what I was getting at. A person that has a septic system would have to pay the taxes on what we don't increase for a rate. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Yeah, ultimately that would be the case, yes.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions based on those two questions? All right. Hearing none, we move on. Public comment? Nothing? All right, move on to 8. Amendment to Chapter 233, BK of the General Ordinance of the City of Rochester relative to the sewer fund service fee.
And this is similar to what was just presented for the water fund. There's a number of service fees under the sewer fund that haven't not been increased or changed in many, many years. And this is getting them to a position where it reflects the true cost to provide the service.
Questions from the council? You're hearing that, open up to the public. Okay, I hear none on that. Move on to 9. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Amendment to Chapter 275 of the General Ordinances of the City of Rochester regarding modular housing, manufactured housing, and recreational vehicles, travel trailers. Turn that over to Mr. Grant.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Coming forward to this here is Article 275, known as zoning. And I want to be very specific to understand, to make sure people understand that this proposed ordinance only affects accessory use. So accessory use is something that's subordinate to a primary use, such as in our case, typically, it's a single-family home or a duplex, where we typically see some RVs parked beside. So as a accessory use, we have regulations in section 23 in our zoning ordinance. This seems to be some of the bigger complaints that we see when these RVs are parked inside of a tight single-family R1, R2 zones, and they seem to generate a lot of complaints with the neighbors. So we came forward to Codes and Ordinance to see if the city wants to do something. So I need to be really clear off the get-go to make sure that we understand that currently, the way that our zoning is worded, living in an RV as an accessory use is not permitted. The zoning does not allow for it, does not have any way to get there presently. So what we've decided to do is to come forward with what seems to be a generalized acceptance throughout some other communities in the state of New Hampshire that has these ordinances already. And to be quite frank, some of the ones that we actually stole a lot of the verbiage from is from the smaller city of Franklin, New Hampshire. So real quick, the accessory use section of this right now says absolutely not. So if I get a complaint that someone is living in an RV today, we're going to post a notice to vacate right then and there. What this ordinance is doing now is trying to relax some of those rules in order to get to some comfort where, again, inside of a single-family residence, like I live downtown in Rochester, to have an RV parked right beside my home that now my neighbors that bought in a single-family home, all of a sudden, I got two families. Or better yet, let's ask the question, how many RVs should we allow? All right, again, right now, the answer is none. So what we're trying to do here is to add on for a use of RVs. Our current ordinance is in 23.2, and it deals with mobile units. Mobile units is not a defined term, but if I go to look at the word mobile unit in any dictionary, you're going to find that it's going to be able to be moved easily. So yes, RVs fit that bill. So I either go that as accessory uses, or I go to definition of what is a campground. And now I hit into a campground, a tract of land where sites are rented or used as temporary uses. So RVs underneath the campground are only allowed through special exception, only in the agricultural zone and also the recycle and industrial zone are the only two special exemption zones that allow for campgrounds. So if I don't look at this as an accessory use, it's definitely a primary use or a new primary use. And let's just say in these zones that we typically see these things, they wouldn't be permitted at all, period. So again, that notice to vacate still holds true. So what we're trying to do here is to allow for the use of RV. We're just asking for it to be hooked up properly, have some type of water, make sure sewage disposal is either by storage tanks pumped out by an approved septic pumper, and so on. So we're looking at that from a health standpoint purely in that situation. We're also allowing for a property owner to allow for up to 15 days as a guest. So if grandma comes up from Florida and wants to visit the kids, well, it's somewhat of an approved use. Now, 15 days could be adjusted by all means. I mean, sometimes some of these campers come up and very nice ones too, to be quite frank. And you know, sometimes 15 days driving up for two might not be long enough, but we took some language from other towns. And the other thing that this does too is right now, if you have a home that's destroyed by fire or some other damage beyond your control, Right now, you're allowed to set let me get my terminology correct. You're allowed to set a modular building. A modular building is something, another preset home done through the fire marshal's office. The other term you have is manufactured housing. That typically has a HUD label. Those are what we find in a lot of our parks. So the modular building right now are the only ones allowed to be set place to your home that just caught on fire. Again, don't want to disturb the kids, don't want to, send them to a new school district or anything. They've already had such a major disruption in their life, and that's why state RSA allows for those type of buildings. What this proposed ordinance does is also allows for an RV to be there for up to a year while you have an active building permit. And then outside of that, everything else is pretty much the same. We're allowing them for seasonal basis, dealing with farms, as most state RSAs require us to do. And we also continue the old language for employees of internet businesses such as carnivals, up to 30 days. That language was in mobile units, but that's not what really comes. Those are actually RVs. So when I separated that from the modular and manufactured terminology, I stuck that in the RV section. So again, this ordinance actually relaxes all current rules from what's on the books today, and that has been on our books for the last 10 years. So again, we're just dealing with complaints, and we understand that this use is somewhat acceptable on a very limited basis to a lot of neighbors, especially the tight R1s and R2s. And just trying to come forward again with proposed changes to see whether or not the city would like to increase the use of an RV.
Councilor Carolian.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and the information. Is there any oversight as pertaining to condition and age of these trailers?
Currently, no, but typically the fire departments are the ones that kind of show us where they are when the red lights are going to them. So we have had fires on Jackson Street, was one of them. We've had fires in some of our campgrounds. And this ordinance does not change anything on a campground. I just want to be clear on that. A campground is a primary use, doesn't have to comply with the section. It's accessory use section. So yes, we do find these uses of these RVs, typically an RV, a recreational vehicle, it's not made to be a primary. It's not made for that type of use, that constant use.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Fontenot, then Councilor DeJarbois.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Grant, for that information. And I guess I don't want to repeat what you said, but I really want to reiterate and make sure that it's understood, because I know we're going to hear a lot of comment tonight that, because I believe the perception is that we're creating a new ordinance that's going to outlaw RVs, so to speak. And that's actually exactly the opposite of what's happening here, is that this was written to allow, right now they're not allowed, period, and this was written to allow them to some extent so that you would have some leeway in allowing. So until we pass this, there's like a zero tolerance. After we pass this, there is some tolerance. So I just wanted to thank for that. When I was reading a little deeper, one of the questions I had on, under the XX recreational vehicle travel trailers and section A, it said that the vehicle which must be current with its registration shall not be hooked up to any utility. And I'm wondering, the example that you gave of grandma comes up from Florida, parks the motorhome in the family driveway for a couple of weeks, would they not be allowed to plug in?
Yeah, so that's actually covered in section C. That's a great question, because absolutely, on the surface, it's exactly what you state seems to be true until you read C, where it does say that. I'm sorry, it's underneath C. It's underneath B, where in the last section states, with the condition that the sanitization facilities are operated in conformance with all state codes and regulations. So yes, and absolutely, if the language needs to be a little clearer, because that does not address with the rest of the utilities such as electrical, by all means, we can clear that up. Keep in mind that if this goes forward, this goes to the planning board afterwards, and then we'll come back to you for the final reading. So there is some time to clean these things up, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Alex?
I have, Kevin, two, if I may, Your Honor. One for Director Grant is, first of all, thank you for clarifying. I think the misperception on this has been an issue for many people. I had a few residents reach out to me and ask about this. One particular example that came up was, let's say I've got 12 acres in the agricultural zone. Is this going to prevent me from going and staying in my RV there all summer for a year or longer, right? Or is what you're saying is that that's already not permitted under the current ordinances?
Correct. It's already not permitted by rights, correct. However, like I said, if that large acreage of land wants to go to the planning board and go through the whole regulation process, agricultural zones is a place that you can actually have a campground.
Mm-hmm. And then my second question is actually for the city attorney, and I'm wondering the 15-day limit, if we chose to extend that, is there a certain cutoff beyond which we get into any sort of tenancy situation that we need to be concerned about?
So I don't know how if you adopt it, I don't know how you would extend it, but no, I mean, what we're saying, we're defining the temporary use as 15 days, so we define it there as.
No, I understand, but I'm saying if we wanted to define it as 30 days, 60 days, whatever, would that put a situation where, you get into whoever's hosting these people becomes their landlord or something like that?
I have to look more into that.
Okay.
I'll have to look into the landlord-tenant law on that. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Councilor Fond, I had on most of my first one, that Part A. I do think there needs to be some clearing up of the wording, because the way I read it, it looks like the intention is that you can't hook up to any utility, which I'm assuming would include water and battery, whatever it says, prior to regular seasonal usage. So I don't know if you're trying to hit at, while it's there, it can't be hooked up utilities, or that's only written towards the prior to usage?
Correct. So, again, right now, we're kind of looking at it as the allowance of being in it. What this is really addressing is the allowance for it to be even at your house during that time. Because, again, I really don't want to speak too much code, if you will, because I understand that puts a lot of people to sleep. So you have a definition of a dwelling unit. One or more rooms designed, occupied, or intended for occupancies as a separate living quarters with cooking, sleeping, sanitization facilities provided within the dwelling unit for the exclusive use of a single family maintained as a household. Then the next definitions that apply to this is single-family homes and two-family lots. All right, single-family lots tells you exactly what it is. And item C occupies its own individual lot on which there is no other dwelling or principal use. So therefore, I couldn't have that RV on that lot without having some type of exemption. So the exemptions that we have currently allows for you to have that lot, have that RV on the lot, but not use it. So that's what the intentions of A is. And I do agree, after reading it a second time, Section B could be worded a little better to allow for all those hookups during that 15 days. Absolutely.
If I could, the second part was more related to what Councilor DeJefois said. These are the 15 days. I feel like that's somewhat arbitrary. I also feel like people that are using RVs and are choosing to stay in them for visitation on short term, if they're traveling from a distance, Texas to here, that's probably too short for within a year. So I would be in support of some sort of term, not to exceed blank number of days within a year. for consecutive terms, but that seems pretty tight for a calendar year if somebody was to travel. But they may do it in the spring and the fall. So I would be in support of revisiting where that 15 days came from or extending it up to, maybe 30 days in a calendar year, no more than 15 consecutive days in a row or something.
Thank you. All set? Counselor Walker.
Yeah, the conversation is right where I was going to mention. I think 15 days is too short too, and I'd prefer to see it at least 30 days. Now, the other thing it doesn't mention is setbacks from the property line. Because some of these get right up against the property line, and that causes friction among the neighbors.
So that would be underneath structures as a definition. Technically, this qualifies as a building, so therefore it would require all the setbacks in that zone.
But it's not going to be listed here, you just.
It wouldn't be in there, be in the rest of zone in the 275, I think it's 18.
Good question. Thank you. All right, any other questions for Mr. Grant? Counselor Credo.
Yeah, I like to just try to make things as simplistic as we can, because one of the biggest arguments you're going to hear from people are that the homeless will have no place to stay. Are you saying that as of the laws currently, that's already the case, and this changes nothing about that?
And this will add up to 15 days as written.
Okay, so the change will be for 15 days.
And the change will go from nothing to 15 days.
Okay.
All right, we'll turn over to the public. Come up and state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Rick Peralt. I am Mona's happy husband. I have a home. My primary residence is in Chesley Hill Road here in Rochester. My wife leases Evergreen RV to me, and she gouges me awful in the rent. I just want to share this with you. I wanted to take a moment, if you would. I would like to say a prayer. We're in the Christmas season, and I'm going to pray. And particularly, I'm going to pray for the Callahan family. And we're going to come to you, dear Lord, thankful that we get to come and ask for you. We're thankful that we have wonderful doctors and medicine, but we understand that's not the answer, but we're going to come to you and trust in you, dear Lord, and give them the peace. When he said, I will bring peace to this earth, he didn't say about wars, because that's coming way later after in Revelations, but in reality, to give you peace in your family and the First Lady, Miss Susan, and we thank you that we get to do that. In Jesus' name, amen. I just want to share a little bit with you. We are talking about the recreational vehicle industry. I've been involved for 58 years. I don't think anybody in the city has come to my facility to look and see what a recreational vehicle is. We had some comment before the meeting started about park models and what they are. Park models are not recreational vehicles. Recreational vehicle is a fully self-contained unit. It is registered, taxes are paid, it has a license plate on it. You park it in your home. You get to be able to, when you want to go on holiday somewhere, you'll be able to go in it. I would challenge the ordinance to tell you that you cannot sleep in your recreational vehicle because the air conditioner you do not have in your house, but you have it on your recreational vehicle, and you would not be able to stay in it. I believe that's a registered vehicle. It is fully self-contained. It comes for wiring, plumbing, electrical. It does not have to be hooked to anything. We did have in this on A, he did say you would be able to have it plugged in to actually charge the batteries. That's what a recreational vehicle does because of the fully self-contained nature. It is not environmentally unsafe. It is not imposing on anything. And you're telling me now in the city of Rochester that we can't have anybody sleep in their recreational vehicle? I'll tell you what, now we're going to have the thing that I was going to talk about. Now, we could have a community crime watch. Everybody knows what that is. Everybody works together. We see some crime, we're going to notify the people. Well, we're going to have a codes, ordinance, and nuisance department. Because now we're going to ask people, get the calendar. We're going to have a nuisance calendar that, you spent 15 days. 14 days, you can't be spending 15 days in your camper. You understand they talk about, and in this ordinance it says, You can actually spend a year in that camper for some exterior circumstance. Well, if you're telling me it's a seasonal unit, I have to tell you, I have a machine in the yard that's $488,600. Come and take a look at the thing. Nobody came in the city, nobody came and looked at this fully self-contained recreational vehicle with 400 cubic feet of space, dishwashers, washer dryers. None of that is going to be imposing on the city. And I have to tell you that, you know, the one I have is on the secondary market. It's $171,000, and of course, I'm a salesman, so I'm marketing the thing. But here's what I can tell you this. I have an ordinance here that says general health regulations, health and sanitation. 16 times it's referred to a nuisance or offensive or menace. We got ordinances. Believe me, we've got ordinances. I'll tell you what, the best thing you can do is if a person has that thing, is registered, and to be able to go out and camp with it, 15 days. What we're talking about here is 15 days. You're going to go put the thing seasonally use. If I snow ski, seasonal use, I'm going to have a recreational vehicle that has a heating system, dual pane windows, heated basement, absolutely more comfortable than some people's homes. So I think if, you know, depending on what you're going to talk about, listen, what's a season, 3 months? You know, that's 90 days. You know, let's, you know, what I say is this. I paid $305,664 in taxes since I built my store. There were 4 businesses. I only talked to 3 people. I didn't talk to one of the owners. And I can tell you this, that's $1,222,000 in taxes, 24 years. What you're going to do is you're going to paint the picture in the city of Rochester. We don't want no recreational vehicles. We don't want people to have recreational vehicles. We don't want you to buy a recreational vehicle. We don't want to leave it on the site. Listen, if I believe this, you can challenge that ordinance because that is not a permanent residence. It is a mobile, fully self-contained unit. We're not talking park models. We're not talking, park models designed to go from the manufacturer to one spot. That's it. It's not fully self-contained. It doesn't have freshwater tanks. It doesn't have sewer tanks. It doesn't even have the electrical system to be able to do that. So we're talking about mobile units, or mobile housing units. That's a different thing. But we're talking about a registered, taxes paid. Can you imagine how much in registration? I'll tell you what, you want to be sitting down when the town clerk tells you how much it's going to cost to register that motorhome. A $488,000 motorhome. What do you think it costs to register a car? It's too much money now, right? Try registering a motorhome in New Hampshire. Tell me there's no tax. I deal with it every day with the people. All I want to know is this. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people working in the, I call it the codes ordinance and nuisance department. What are we going to do? Have somebody now that's going to make sure that nobody stays in their motorhome or their recreational vehicle for more than 15 days? You're going to have to hire another guy. And then what are we going to do? Have drones flying over the house? Make sure we take pictures of the people's property? I got 6.5 acres. I've never had a recreational vehicle on there, thank God. You know, and I don't camp. You know, I'd be like me trying to sell that motorhome to the guy. I'm beside that. You know, I wouldn't be resting. But I can tell you this. I believe it's wrong. I believe it's wrong when you want to paint the picture that we're not agreeable to the people who buy these things. These people are not on the banana peel most of the time. You know, it's a recreational thing. It's above and beyond what they do, and they've worked hard to get them. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who work for the cities, police, fire department. People want to, truck drivers that want to go see some of the country. But to be able to restrict it, I think you absolutely shouldn't be a restriction. And I got to tell you, and I actually would challenge the ordinance now because I believe that recreational vehicle meets all the codes and standards, Recreational Vehicle Institute of America. I believe that that is not any way detrimental to the city of Rochester. Now, if somebody's putting the sewer out on the ground, probably the DES or EPA is going to come after you, right? We've got, you know, people are going to keep track of that. If you got something that's a fire hazard or something like that, you have a fire department that's going to do it. What I was hoping to this was not to have a community that I got to watch. Listen, I got a neighbor from the day one he came, God bless his soul, started off on the wrong foot every time I drive by. I do not want to pay attention to how many dogs he has in the back, how he's going to burn the leaves and when all the leaves, and we have red flag warnings for burning en masse. I don't want to be the nuisance. Now, you have nuisance, the guy causing the problem. The nuisance is a guy calling all the time because we got a nuisance, and I could be the guy here because I'm a nuisance, because I think this is wrong, all right? All I want is this. I believe the people that have recreational vehicles, and I got to tell you, they love their country, they love their families, they pay their bills, and they love their pets. More RVs get sold because of pets, and I'm thankful that's a great industry. Listen, come out and visit someday, we'll give you the tour. But if you have any questions of me, God bless you all. Happy Christmas.
Christopher Rice, 10 Rod Road. Just a few things that I'd like to echo from Mona's happy husband. Can never remember his first name, but I always remember him by Mona's happy husband. So property ownership is the cornerstone of one of our freedoms here in America, and especially in New Hampshire. And, you know, reflecting back on this past election that we just had, and I was driving around and I was reading license plates, and, you know, our state motto is live free or die. It's not just a slogan here in New Hampshire, it's a way of life. I've lived here my entire life with a brief stint when I moved away, but I was still a registered voter here. Property ownership is one of the things that you cherish the most. And I understand that the current law is 0 days. I don't believe that 15 days is long enough. I talked with a few former constituents of mine. One lives right down the road from me. She and her husband spend winters in Florida. They come back to Rochester to their home where they actually live. But they bring their grandkids up. And their grandkids will come up here and spend 2.5, maybe 3 months with their grandparents. And they stay in their camper that they take down to Florida. They come into the house to use the bathroom, shower, all that, laundry, all that stuff. They're literally just using the camper to sleep in and to have their own little bit of privacy away from the family if they need it. But if we go to a 15-day ordinance, well, 15 days, they're done. Another story that I heard is another constituent. His adult children are traveling nurses, and I know it was talked about. And they come and they spend about 4 months, and they work in the area hotels, bouncing around different contracts and stuff like that. But they live in an RV, and they hire a local septic company to come once a week. They pay, I think it's like $50. I kind of was floored by it, to come and pump out their tanks. They're hooked up to water, but they come once a week to pump out their tanks. Well, I mean, under the ordinance, yes, it's not allowed, but under this new ordinance, excuse me, my apologies. Under this new ordinance, they'd only be allowed for 15 days, nothing more. So I think some serious consideration would be well spent sending this back to codes before you send it to the planning board. The planning board is just going to eat this up, and it's not prime time. We have a few state legislators, former state legislators that are up here. Would you send this bill that you're seeing now on the floor to your colleagues over in the Senate, or if you're in the Senate, over into the House? It's not prime time. This bill's not ready. I think we should send it back to committee. We have a few months. You can iron out some details and get it going. I will say about code enforcement, you know, if this was to go through, what kind of mechanism are we going to have in place? And I'm going to use that term mechanism kind of loosely because the city manager is probably already in her head. Well, how many positions can I get out of this? Well, I'm going to need an administrative assistant for the director. I'm going to need an assistant director to oversee the 3 new code officers that I'm going to need to go and enforce this stupid law. That's what these city staffers are thinking. My apologies. So before we start going down this rabbit hole, let's start thinking about what code enforcement really is for and not building them up and ruining property ownership here in the city of Rochester. I think it's disgusting.
Good evening, council members, mayor, fellow citizens. My name is Samantha Montgomery, and I have lived in Rochester my entire life. Before me, my mother and grandparents lived in this place as well, and I'm proud to continue this. I'm here tonight to discuss an item on the agenda, which is what we're talking about now, that proposes landowners, tells them what they can and can't have on their own property, the property that we pay taxes on. So this is very similar to the recent one that just passed right on fowl and chickens and how they're kept and what we have and how we have to house them as well. So as someone who volunteers for an organization that provides food and necessities to the homeless and helps those struggling to secure housing, and I see firsthand those that don't have homes and the increasing number of people facing housing insecurity. Many of them have lost their homes because they simply cannot afford their bills, whether those bills are monthly or weekly. In some cases, families allow their loved ones to shelter in campers on their property as a temporary solution. Really, in this kind of weather, today wasn't too bad, but most nights it's down in the 20s. So I'd much rather have them housing there than freezing to death outside, because we know that the current situation for homelessness isn't good, and there is no housing for those people. It's very limited. Not everyone gets to stay inside in the winter months. This is just one example, of course, of the creative ways people are trying to make do with minimal resources. I also know many snowbirds. These friends of mine who keep campers on their children's properties, as was mentioned earlier, this is another example of how people use campers for shelter during difficult times, especially when other options are unavailable or unaffordable. Additionally, when people sell their homes for various reasons or lose their homes, they often struggle to find new housing or land to build on. The housing market is difficult, with many sellers preferring cash buyers, leaving others, especially those in need of affordable housing, without options. They too may turn into staying in campers for survival when they are unable to secure other housing options. I'm here tonight to tell the mayor and all of you, our elected representatives, that as a landowner and taxpayer, I do not approve of anyone telling me what I can and cannot do on my property. Property that I am taxed on and have worked hard to own. The idea that any regulations would restrict my ability to make choices about my own land is something I cannot support. I urge you to consider the real-life struggles of individuals and families who are already facing challenges. It appears tonight that this regulation has already been passed, and it's unfortunate that, we don't even have a local paper really anymore. It's very limited, where people don't know about the rules or what they've passed with regard to the campers. I wasn't aware that there is no camping allowed. I see people doing it, and I'm fine with it. It's none of my business what they do on their own property. But I think it needs to be revisited. It's going to make it even harder for people to find affordable solutions or make use of their own land. Thank you for your time and consideration in this, and I hope this gets revisited, because 15 days isn't the answer. The answer is to let people, within reason, people do what they need to do to survive. Thank you.
Hey, just before you go, just no clapping, please. We'll just let everybody get through their speech, and we'll move on. Thank you.
Carol Petrusevich again. I noticed that this meeting happened to be really good timing because it was 2 days after the Bill of Rights Day on December 15th. And the Bill of Rights reminds us of what are inalienable, right? And one of them is property rights. We own our property. Yes, we pay taxes, so we really don't own anything, right? Everything's God's, and we're just good stewards. But We own our property, we pay our taxes, we pay our mortgage taxes, we pay any other fees, like permit fees is another tax. We're paying all these taxes, and there's certain things that we have freedoms about. I'm not quite sure whether this all came out about eyesores, like people complaining. I'm not sure what the complaints are that they're seeing trailers. Because on my street, I see people that have trailers, and I have no problem with it. They're parked in the yard, so I'm not sure if this is trying to say that you can't have your own trailer parked in your own yard. I know it talked a lot about staying in the trailer, but inalienable rights, there are many reasons to have that trailer, whether it's just to take it off and go camping in the summer, or whether it be you're there to take care of an elderly relative who lives in the house and you just need that timeout space that you need to just sleep somewhere else. And most of those times you're in using the facilities in the house itself. And we already have ordinances with health. If someone didn't take care of the septic, there's already health ordinances that could step in. We don't need to overregulate. The amendment on Chapter 275 of Rochester's ordinance for modular housing, manufactured homes, and RVs and trailers really tramples on individual rights, just like regulating the height of grass in people's yards, another example of overregulation. Let's remember, for the people that own the RVs, some people just have them in the lot and use them in the summertime outside of their own land, like a campground, and some people have it on their property because they take care of the elderly people who live there, or someone's visiting, which we mentioned. Some use it when caring for the elderly, whether it's a parent or a friend. Sometimes they're in a divorce situation. Sometimes they're just having their kids sleep out because they want to feel like they're big kids and they can sleep out, in the yard. Why do we want to deny that? They own the trailers, they own their house, they own the property. A man's house is his castle. It's the right to personal property. If a man wants to pay the extra water to hook up the RV, if he wants to pay the extra electricity to the RV, and if he's decided to do so, then of course he's going to follow the state sanitation laws in regard to emptying the feces properly. And if he didn't, health codes already can be used to enforce the sanitation issue. I had no idea that there's a code that says you can't even have them, and that should be changed. And if it's an eyesore situation, then they can discuss it. Maybe they can go to the neighbor and say, I don't like looking at it. And they can say, all right, I'll put up some trees. Has people done that? I don't know, because I don't really know what the complaints are. And also working as a community, there might be other solutions too when we work together. We don't have to have an intervention from the government. We were designed to be self-regulating, and we can do that. So the question, if you get a permit on a building of a new home because your weather destroyed it, or it was destroyed by fire, it was demolished, there was flood damage, it was destroyed due to the explosion, are you paying for a permit for the new house and a permit for that trailer to be on there for that year? So are we double dipping in our permit fees, or is it just one permit for the new house with a checkbox? That's a question. And I'm just clarifying, are you saying that RVs cannot be parked in your own driveway except for 15 days? And are you saying that you can't hook it up plug in the electricity if you needed to? Okay, I understand that you're talking about for non-paying guests for 15 days. And what would James Otis have to say about that? He would say, absolutely not. A man has a right to his private property of his land and his trailer. Remember the Castle Doctrine? It was in 1761, and father to the founding fathers, James Otis, pontificated for 5 hours in the courthouse, the State House in Massachusetts. Wouldn't that be an awesome video if we had that we could all watch today? The writs of assistance that led to the Castle Doctrine, a man's house is his castle. He felt that all the founders did, that when you own property, that your castle, you are in charge of it. Many of our Bill of Rights came from James Otis's inspiration about this Castle Doctrine. Bottom line, again, if there's a sanitation issue, it becomes a health ordinance issue, which we already have authority to handle right now, already as it is. So if Rochester's really welcoming community, which I do believe it is, we may want to keep that in mind. When thinking about regulations, we may want to remember that over-regulation is not welcoming. It falls under usurping individual property rights. And also remember about the taxing, kind of the double dipping. If you put it on the road, you paid for the tax there. your property tax. We have all these taxes that are double dipping. We really don't need to go there. And again, we can work as a community to work out the differences. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ed Feliciano. I live on Chestnut Hill Road. I have one of those RVs that Rick's talking about that has the washer, the dryer, 2 bathrooms. I love my RV. I use it all the time, and I'm one of the ones that break the rules. I do sleep on Chestnut Hill Road sometimes. When I come back from a concert or I drove back from Florida and I don't want to go in the house, I sleep in it. I think the rules that we're trying to get, I think, are okay, but I don't think we should regulate so much on the RV and part of it. If you want to say they have to be registered, maybe. I have friends that come from, and their motorhomes are worth $1 million. They come to my house on Chestnut Hill Road, and I'll have 2 of them there. So is this telling me I can only have 1 of them there? Is this telling me that I can only have just my motorhome there, my RV? Or when they call it a coach, my RV's plugged in all the time. I have a regular residential fridge in there, so it's plugged in all the time. I'm very lucky I have my own dump station there, and I got my own water thing. But if you're regulating who I can have to come to my property, I just don't think that's fair and right for all the taxes that I pay. I own another property on Eastern Avenue. I got 9 garages there. Is that saying I only have 1 RV there when I could put 9 cars there? These RVs sell for $700,000 to $800,000. I just registered mine, cost me $1,900 to register that thing. It's a lot of money. So I see them parked on the lawns. I see people have them. That's a neighbor to complain if they want to complain about it. But I don't think people are really living in these during the wintertime because your water, mines I could because it's all heated and everything, but most of these you can't because your water would freeze. So they're probably just sleeping in it. So I think a registration, you might want to say they have to be registered after 1 year. But I just don't understand why we're coming to this part of telling me, and I'm in an R1, I'm in an agricultural zone, but I really think that we're just reaching too far for this. I mean, I think last month you guys were talking about the grass. Now we're talking about RVs. We had one fire, I think 5 years ago, whatever, over by Subway there, and that person got killed in that fire. But you don't have a lot of fires in these things. They're built very well. So that's my 2 cents. I hope you go back to committee with it. Maybe Jim can sit down with me, maybe Rick, and discuss, what we need. 15 days, I don't think it should be any days thing. I mean, if my friends come, he can stay 15 days, but my other friend can't come this year because I already used up my 15 days. It doesn't really make, and people are just gonna start calling. My neighbor next to me hates me. He calls me, he already called me 3 times for somebody sleeping in. I'm gonna be honest with you, but it's just, I think the rules are just getting to be a little too far for the RV. That's my 2 cents, and thank you, guys.
Thank you.
My name's Dave Stewart. I own 8 acres on 22 Shaw Drive over here in East Rochester. I'm just here to say that I'm against any regulation that impedes my ability to do what I want to do on my property. That's the reason why I bought 8 acres, is to be able to do what I want to do. I got a shooting range. The police come over and checked it out, said I have a nice berm. Neighbors complained about it at first. They don't know more. I just want to be able to live here in Rochester at peace with everybody else. That's all I really got to say.
Thank you.
Good evening, Human Ward 6 Ward Clerk in Exile. This ordinance that you're proposing has an equal protection problem. That is to say, it violates the equal protection principle of law. And it does that because it creates at least 4 different classes of people, and it affords members of those classes different rights under the law. You have the seasonal farm workers, you have the itinerant circus employees, you have the visitors, the RVers, and you have the rest of the general public. If you pass this ordinance, you're going to have to explain to the public why the seasonal farm workers get to have modular units, but the circus workers don't. You're going to have to explain why the circus workers can stay in their RVs for 30 days, but the RVers can only stay for 15 days. The rules that you're proposing here afford different rights to different classes of people, and if you're going to sustain this, I mean, if you pass this ordinance, I can almost guarantee you that it's going to end up in court, and you're going to have to explain to a judge why these different classes of people should be afforded, why there's a compelling reason to afford these different classes of people different rights. So this amendment to the ordinance does not pass the equal protection test. I think you should at least have these ordinances run by the city attorney before you propose them to the full council, because this one is not constitutional. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. Human brought up an interesting point, something I hadn't considered. Every year we have a great tradition in this city, which seems to have developed some issues, and that's called the Rochester Fair. And if you go out to the back side of their parking lot, they have several individual RVs and multi-unit RVs out there for the workers, primarily the Kearney folks. And they come in, they help set up the fair, they run the fair. There's a gap between the first weekend and the second weekend, and then they're also there to help break down. Could almost bet some money that they're there more than 15 days, and how is that going to affect them? And is this just another end-around game from the administration to get back at Rama? Thank you.
Tom Kaczynski again. District 5 state rep who, when I'm in Concord, I proudly vote for freedom whenever the opportunity arises. This codes and ordinances, well, it's a busy committee, and I attended a couple months ago when these things came up. You know, regulations galore. And it makes me think, somebody my age, I liked a lot of the music in the 60s and 70s, and what comes to mind is Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And the song they made famous, Chicago. And one of the verses is, rules and regulations, who needs them? Throw them out the door. And yet, we got people that grew up in that generation, and they're looking to impose extensive rules and regulations on the citizenry. Now, I wondered, what is the problem with RVs? You got to limit uses, registrations, et cetera. And it seems like it's a violation of citizens' rights. What did come to me, and I'd like clarity on this, I hope it's not true, but I'm thinking about the Amazon Park, and the city's made many attempts to try to shut down the operation because they had RVs there, the people were living in, attempts to control it. And these units, while some of us might not like to live in something like that, for some people that have limited means, they're happy with that. And shutting down any units would cause more homelessness. And I don't know how this could benefit citizens of Rochester. You know, we hear these talks over and over here in this room about homelessness, and you guys can't solve the problem. It's always a dead end. And maybe it's something you can't solve, I don't know. But why would you want to make it any worse? So again, this gives dignity to people who wouldn't be if they were out in the woods living in a tent or whatever. So if this was meant to affect this, I hope you would guarantee, well, I'd like to hear a guarantee that it will not affect them. But the fact is, in people's houses, you got an RV in your house, I mean, what's the big deal?
You have friends, relatives over, kids want to sleep in there. Why do you need any kind of limits on that? This is ridiculous. You got to get permission from the city. And it's really no business of the city. The thing that is worrisome is complaint-driven enforcement. So, you know, it brings to mind, I'm thinking about like wartime Germany and the Hitler Youth where they're reporting their parents for violations. I mean, this is really what this comes down to. Got to have people squealing. They got the snitches. You know, this recent election, you ought to take to heart that one of the ideas that were put forward that people demanded is they want less regulation. So whether it's what happened on a national level, it's a lot of people here that came out, and I think that's what they want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm just wondering what prompted this. I know.
Record your name and
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, Sue. Hi, Sue Grant from
live?
Pine Street. Yep.
Thank you.
I'm wondering if the homeless issue is what has brought all of this to the point that we're at, knowing that we have RVs that are in the park and rides, and maybe if that's what's causing a problem. I don't know why, if there were no regulations before, why this is coming even to be where it's at. Because the homeless situation, we know, is just devastating. And if that's what the problem is, that should be addressed, not something to affect private property owners that are parking their travel campers, their mobile home, well, not mobile homes, but RVs, because I too think, like, what if you're a family that has one and you have different children come and visit 2 weeks out of their year, but you've got 5 kids, you know, you're just into a situation where you're not going to be able to control it. It's just not going to be controllable, in my opinion. And I'm wondering if what's brought the focus to it is the problems at the park and ride, or even, I don't know, Home Depot parking lot, Walmart parking lot. I know that people that have no other place to sleep are parking their RVs there. And I feel like if that's okay with the property owner, it should be not the business of the city. I mean, honestly. But that's all I have. I just would like to know what brought it to where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, okay.
I'm Tyler Emerson. I live on Brock Street. I just feel like there's a lot of overregulation in this city. Like, I believe our motto is live free or die. You know, I worked hard to get my property. It's private property. You know, why am I being dictated on what I can do? Like, well, I can't have 2 cars on my property, or I can't have 2 RVs. You know, where does it stop? Where does it start? You know, when do people just realize that minding their own business is better? You know, we all work hard, and if they want to control me on my property, then they should take my property tax away. Give me that back every year I pay it, because I'll do anything you guys tell me to do with my property, but don't, you know? If you're going to enforce a property tax, then don't tell me what to do with my property. That's all I really get to say. Thank you.
I'm short. Jessica Labonte, Dry Hill Road. My big issue,
What's the address?
Dry Hill Road.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. My big issue is my dad's always had campers. It's something that randomly we did when we were younger. He likes to bond. It's a thing. I know a lot of people are pushing the 15-day limit. That's my biggest issue because I have a preteen. She doesn't want to hang out with us. She doesn't want to hang out with her papa. She's getting older. We're not cool. I get it. But in the summers, she's so happy when she's like, can I just go sleep over papa's and we can have a camp night in the camper in the driveway? And those are the nights she lives for. But then are we going to limit that to 15 times during the summer? How am I going to control, oh, well, no, you went last Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. You can't go for another 3 months. Sorry. I just feel like we have enough issues with keeping families together as things are. It's not the same world that I grew up in personally. So any way that kind of hinders her having a relationship that she maybe otherwise wouldn't have had, I just don't really love that for her. So, I mean, it's just the 15 days that I personally see an issue with because you're impeding on families' relationships. And it's not just us, it's everybody's families that come to visit. So that's all.
Thank you. All right, that's it. Before I close the public hearing, I'll ask Director Grant to come up and you want to respond to some of the comments? And if any questions councilors have, we can go over that too.
I do apologize. I am hard of hearing, and it's very difficult to hear in this setting, unfortunately. It's the design of this building that's been here. In fact, when I was sitting up there for ZBAs and stuff, it's always, especially when they're doing like clod dancing up there, it's really hard to understand. I did get an awful lot of the gist of what was being said here. And I just want to reiterate again that this does not apply to any existing campground out there. And in fact, some of those campgrounds, we actually have some active court cases against for some of the overuse. So this does not change anything with the campground. However, if you are temporarily needing a place to stay and you have an RV, that is a viable solution. Currently, still today, and however, no matter which way the court cases go, it will still be a viable solution. What this ordinance is really geared towards are these tight little neighborhoods, and all of a sudden I have an RV or two in the backyard, and now I have several vehicles in the yard. And again, this is just nothing more than a solution to the common complaints that this office receives. So we have this all over the community, all over different places, like I said, in all different classes, different neighborhoods, you name it. This sees no boundaries, if you will. This is a problem in every other neighborhood. I know I walk my neighborhood, I walk a few miles every day with my dog, and I actually have seen these campers being used. And I've seen campers being used pretty politely, if you will. And I've seen them in the opposite direction, too. I've seen them where trash services must only fill up a bucket, and any beyond that tends to stay in the yard. We also go back in these things, again, for health regulations. We see a lot of times it's typically not the solids, it's the liquids that are dripping all over the yards. So this is looking at it from two different standpoints. One, health, and two, literally enjoyment of my home that I purchased, and all of a sudden next to me, there's a campground. Now, I understand that people can be down on their lucks, and I understand, and I hope I'm never in that position, especially not with the amount of kids that I have and will try to have to house. All right? But again, you know, I understand that there are bad times, and I also did pay attention to the news, and I understand that this community in New Hampshire together is facing a real houseless problem. But these are not really a solution to that problem. They really are not. These things are listed as recreational vehicles. The data plates on both RVs as well as the aforementioned park models have a boilerplate right on their listings that tell you that these cannot be used as your dwelling unit, meaning that it is recreational. I can go buy a tool at Home Depot, and I can buy a very cheap one. And it's gonna last maybe as a homeowner, but it might not work as a contractor. And what I'm getting to here, this is not a house. These are RVs used for recreational vehicles. Now, I have been able to stay in some of these $750,000 RVs. And yes, some of these things are built a lot better than most of the houses around here. As a racetrack electrician, I got to wire millions of dollars worth of RVs that would make you drool walking into these things. But even them are not allowed to be your primary residence, no matter how much money you spend on them. They're not made for that type of environment. They really aren't. And like I said before, we have had a few deaths here in the city from people sleeping in, again, travel trailer types. All right? Again, you're using something beyond its intention. And again, these things here, for reasonable enjoyment of my home, if I'm in a single-family dwelling, and all of a sudden, there's 3 neighbors that all have campers in their backyard. The other thing I just want to point out, without a regulation of these campers, what's to stop them from being on an Airbnb list? All right? Imagine that in every single one of, I live in a neighborhood with a couple hundred homes. Imagine if everybody had one. So what's the limit here, really? So I think this is a reasonable solution to a problem we already have. All right?
Mr. Grant, just quickly, one thing I think you need to clarify is you did hear from some folks, a few of them, that thought that just parking the RV for 15 days is
Correct.
violating the
So
regulation.
parking the RV there is nothing there. It's when you're using it as a dwelling unit. And parking it there in this proposed ordinance allows you to hook up to electricity for charging the batteries, maintenance, and stuff like that. So
And the
yes, we
second
have that covered.
question I wanted you to clarify is the fairgrounds. Folks at the fairgrounds can use that for 30 days, correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
All right, Council Sullivan and Council Fontenot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate all that conversation from the public and Mr. Grant. I think there is probably a need for this to some extent. I think there's probably a solution in there. I think what's presented is far from it, though. From hearing what some of the people said, I think there's a lot that can be done on this. I guess I'm concerned now from hearing with that and what Mr. Mayor just said. It does say that you can use them for farm workers. It does say that you can use them for, supervisory personnel for like camps or something like that, I'm assuming that is. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't lay out the difference between that and your relative at your house. So I think that it needs to define what has to be provided for those farm workers, seasonal laborers, whatever, that sets it apart. So they have to have whatever facilities available. Each one has to have its own hookup, stuff like that. I mean, because you have to set it apart. What's the delineation? Similar to what one resident said, he may have a large parcel. He may have 6, 10 acres, field in the back. You can't see from the road. The neighbors can't see. So why can he only have one camper there? I think there's a lot to be done on this. I think it's a good, I'm not opposed to where it's going. I think it's, you're at the starting line, really, with what's written. I did want you to, if you could, just comment on one other part, though, is that some people brought up, is it per vehicle or is it 15? So, for example, one person said a friend comes for 15 days. That one leaves. Can another one come the next day? Or is it 15 days of sleeping in a camper, an RV, on a property within a year? So do they all, does it this friend gets 5 days, this friend gets 5 days, the next one gets 5 days, and I'm done?
So the way that this works here is it's for a period of not to exceed 15 days in 1 year.
Per camper, per property?
That is per property, the way it's worded. You're allowed to have a camper come on your property, all right? And also, just to go back to your agricultural 7, 8, 9, 10 acres, nothing stops them from going to the planning board through special exception and go ahead and get the rights to have a campground. And also, too, if this is something that the community needs because of a housing thing, nothing's stopping them from coming in and opening a campground, open it at reduced rates for people that are hurting, and to do this properly, just not in the R1 neighborhood. Again, where I bought a home and I'm expecting that everybody around me follows the zoning rules. And as past city manager had stated, zoning, the whole purpose of that is more or less a contract between me and the city, that when I spend my money and I buy my home here, that I have reasonable expectation that what can and cannot happen around my yard. So when this starts getting infringed upon, that's when people are calling my office. And this is really the solution that I'm bringing to hopefully make sure that people who have houses here don't have these problems in their neighborhood. And right now, I'm telling you that we have several phone calls, and these things are problems through the city. And after what I read in the newspaper and see on MUR, it's probably going to grow.
Can I just follow up? real quick?
Yes.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, Mr. Grant, I hear what you're saying, and from that, what I'm saying is, I think there is a very big distinction between a seasonal campground and people making them on their property. I fully, 100% support that should never happen. You know, I would not like it if my neighbor put up 10 RVs on their property in a seasonal campground. But there's a huge area between that and my family coming to stay in my driveway for 30 days, right, in the spring, and then my spouse's family coming to stay for 30 days in the fall. There's a huge difference. So I think we have a lot of work to get to what that difference is and to somehow delineate, like you said, year-round living in a structure as your primary residence, right? If it's being used as your primary residence, that's not allowable. But if it's being used as a temporary vacation, and it comes and goes, that can, that's a whole different purpose, I think. I feel like there's a big space between what you just said and kind of what it includes. And we have to try to get a lot of that out.
Councilor Fontenot, were you next?
Yeah, thank you. So if, rather than a question, I guess I heard a whole lot of testimony tonight. I took a whole page worth of notes here, and I was really confused by a whole lot of it, to be really honest with you. And so I guess if you would give me the leeway, I would just like to ask one question of the audience, and just by a show of hands, how many people here tonight are opposed to this amendment? Okay, that's what I thought. And so thank you very much for that. You know, the testimony indicated a lot different than that from a lot of people, so I wasn't sure, but I just wanted to clarify that. This amendment was intended to lessen regulation, but if the majority are opposed to it, that would indicate they would prefer a stricter regulation. So.
No.
No.
You're done.
I'm
No,
sorry,
you're
I
good.
didn't mean to reopen.
Yeah, that
My
was the
fault.
problem.
Thank you.
I should have shut it down. That's
Sorry
my
about
fault.
that.
Should have shut you down. No. No. Any other questions? Councilor Fitzpatrick?
I don't have a question, Your Honor, but I think we could probably be a lot more flexible on the 15 days. And I certainly see your point, and I would ask when this goes back to committee that they do try to make some flexibility for family members, and certainly more flexibility on the amount of time. So, thank you, Your Honor.
Questions? Councilor Credo?
Yeah, just a clarifying question. I know that we had a tragedy on Jackson Street a few years back. I did talk to a constituent of mine who was dealing with the case in which I think you have been referring to. Was that case itself a part of why these regulations that you're being proposed at all?
This has absolutely nothing to do with any campground, as I stated before. This is accessory uses, meaning it is accessory to a primary use. The campgrounds, that is their primary use. This ordinance does not change anything to do with the campground.
No, I wasn't referencing anything about campgrounds.
Okay.
I was talking about Jackson Street.
Oh, sorry. So, yes, something like that gets it on the safety side of things, absolutely. And that is just a demonstration of something that is listed being an RV and then used in a different manner.
So a constituent of mine on Pine Street asked a question we have not answered yet, so I'd like to get back to it. What was the purpose of this regulation that was proposed?
These are from complaint based from neighbors seeing campers abutting their fences or even no fences, but really close to existing homes. And again, having all of a sudden a density that's more than doubled, sometimes tripled, because of the use of an RV. So again, they bought a home in, say, an R1 neighborhood where it's expectation that it's all single families, and all of a sudden I have essentially renters in there, if you will.
Understood. So my last question would be this. If going back to, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, prior to that tragedy in which those people did die in that camper, if these were instituted at that point, would it have saved those lives potentially, in your opinion?
If the limit of it, yes. I mean, I can't speak for the condition of their camper. And if they simply moved to town and continue to use it as a primary residence, yes, and that probably would have still happened regardless of where it would have been. So yes, that potentially could have saved if you limit it. But again, if they go to a campground and stay at a campground for X amount of time, and then they move to the next campground, they're still using that listed appliance, if you will, the RV. I understand it's a recreational vehicle, but they're using it beyond what it was built for, what its intention is.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, during the public hearing, move on to City Council special meeting. Motion to refuse to accept the tax deeds of the properties on the tax collector's payment plan. And we all have a list. Again, it's a waiver of these tax deeds.
So moved.
Do we want the assessor, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, second. You got that? You have the assessor come up and explain what it is. Oh, you're gonna do it? Terrence?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of explain, this is a follow-up to the previous presentations you've had from the assessor. And I know that the motion is very wordy, but it's taken right from the RSA, so that's why it sounds like that. So just kind of to say what it really is. So when a property gets eligible for tax deed, what the law says is the tax collector has to tax deed it unless the governing body, you folks, tell them not to. So the document that the tax collector provided for you, that's a list of properties that she has come up with a payment plan for. And it's in the public interest to refuse these tax deeds because the plan that the tax collector has come up with requires them to stay current on their taxes while engaged in a payment plan that will pay the arrearage. So the process that the tax collector has come up with, these properties will eventually be fully paid on their back taxes and not end up back on this list next year. So it's our position that it's in the public interest to direct her to refuse to tax deed. But just for you folks here and for folks listening at home, no one's getting their taxes forgiven. The liens stay on these properties. The interest continues to accumulate. All that stuff still happens. And if anything were to happen with either an individual or maybe the group as a whole, and this isn't working out, you then just lift your refusal and we go forward the tax deed. So again, it's very wordy and because that comes from the RSA, but essentially you people as the governing body are directing the tax collector, do not execute these tax deeds for now. Is there any questions about that?
No.
Okay.
So as far as the motion goes, do we have to read every single one, or we just say the 40 on our
No,
list?
I said pursuant to the payment plan list provided by the tax collector. So if you could just, you already read the motion.
We all
so.
have it. So any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes carry. Okay, we adjourn the special meeting and move on to city council special meeting and public input. Public input is different than a public hearing. It's limited to 5 minutes.
Samantha Montgomery again. That was really clever what you did, thank you. That really fooled me. I've never been to a city council meeting, but you've opened my eyes. I'll be more careful from now on how I'm voting. What I'd like to say is, really what I came for tonight was to say that it's up to me what I want to do on my own property. The gentleman that was up speaking a minute ago spoke about, did you need something from me? No. Okay. Spoke about how many campers they can have or recreational vehicles they can have on their own property. There is a law that says from distance, from the step backs, so there's already laws in place. There's already laws in place with regard to sewage and things like that that's already there. So it just seems like you guys are building laws upon laws upon laws, and pretty soon we're not going to be able to do anything on our property except pay our taxes every year, and if we're late, we go on a list. So I don't understand this. I think it's very important that people understand how difficult the people in the city of Rochester, how much they're struggling, and how many problems they're having, and when family steps in to try to help them, you guys are tying their hands, even if they do own 10 acres, 2 acres, 5 acres, or 70, in the country like I am. So I think what you're doing is wrong, and I think that needs to be revisited. Somehow it got passed without the city, members of the city knowing about all these laws that are in place, or that were put in place saying that we can't have any campers being lived in. I wasn't aware of it, and I'm sure many of the people behind me weren't aware of that law that was in place or the ruling that's in place. So thank you again for hearing me, and I hope you guys really look at this stuff and start looking at what people are allowed and not allowed to do as taxpayers, according to the rules and regulations.
Just for the record, I should have told you, but you say your name again and address, just for the record.
Samantha Montgomery,
Thank you.
Rochester.
Thanks.
Christopher Rice, 10 Rod Road, again for the record. So I believe when Councilor Fontenot asked the public to raise their hands if they supported the ordinance that was in front of them or in the packet, and I think we all raised our hands against supporting it because we found it too restrictive. And I think that a majority of the body sitting down here would like it to be less restrictive. That's why we didn't support the ordinance that was written. I believe that was Councilor Fontenot's intention. I don't think that he tried to manifest a trickery move that gets pulled often in legislative affairs or governmental affairs. I've known Councilor Fontenot for many years, and I can speak to his goodwill and character in that sense. A couple other things that I want to bring up. I was reading the packet, and in the city clerk's section, she listed a bunch of employees that helped out with the election. And it struck me very, very, very candidly that I saw department heads on that list. Now, it didn't say what they helped out with. But I went back into the memory bank that I have, and I remember seeing a specific department head who is the deputy city manager kerfuffle wazoo position that was funded that I didn't agree with, working at the Ward 5 poll during the last election. While sitting here, I went out, checked the voter rolls out in public, and her name wasn't listed as a resident or a voter here in Rochester, but she's working at our elections. Was she just an usher? I mean, the Ward 5 city councilor that's present tonight is the supervisor or whatever he is for Ward 5. So was she an usher? Was she working with sensitive information, voter rolls information, checking people in, counting absentee ballots maybe? She doesn't vote here. She doesn't pay taxes. The only thing she does is take a paycheck from us taxpayers. And I don't think that anybody should be handling my ballot should live outside the city of Rochester. And there were several people on that list. Andy Watkins, the director of information, Terrence O'Rourke, your city attorney. I think it's kind of alarming. It makes me furious that a non-citizen could potentially have handled my ballot. I don't know what she stands for. I don't know where she lives. I don't know anything. Might want to solve that problem for next time. Last point that I'll bring up is you, as the 13-member body, have the right to question anything, to vote anything up or down. Do not let a single member of this body bully, harass, question your vote. Don't let any member of city staff threaten, harass, bully, whatever. I was outside enjoying, I'll admit it, a nasty habit of nicotine, and I saw the city attorney get into an argument, well, it looked like an argument, with the director of building, zoning, and licensing. They do not run the city. The city administration does not run the city. You do. You set policy, you set the goals, you set the tone of what Rochester needs to be. Not this man, not that woman up there. You do. They execute your wishes. That's all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you again, Rick Peralt, known as Happy Husband, Chesley Hill Road. Just a couple of things. One is, I think from what I saw, the public talking about the recreational vehicle thing, I think that that this ordinance proposed seems too restrictive. And I understand that. That's what I understood from what I saw the people. That's what I believe. Now, the ordinance that's in place may be way more restrictive than that, but let's take a look at it. And I wanted to share with you, a recreational vehicle, if you would finance it, and not everybody pays cash for them, get a 20-year note on it, simple interest, just like having a home. It is tax deductible on your taxes as a home. If it is your primary residence and they talk about they're just recreational use, there's a lot of people who maybe go down south, stay in their recreational vehicle, and come up here, maybe in a campground. But these vehicles that we talked about, the standard in which they're made, Recreational Vehicle Institute of America makes that a safe vehicle for them to be able to live in. Now, it is a recreational vehicle because we like to talk and go out in those things. But it is, on a tax purposes, can be a second home. I don't have mortgages and all that stuff, but I have a home on Lake Winnipesaukee. And if I had a mortgage on that and I had a mortgage on my Chesley Hill property, I could deduct both of those because they're residences. Now, a recreational vehicle, because it has sleeping, cooking, and a bathroom facility, fully self-contained, it is considered a home for a tax purpose. Just so you know, we've been hearing a lot about, seasonal. And then in the same thing, in the proposed measurement, you'll have somebody living in it for a year, but we can't have somebody have it for more than 15 days. Now, I have 6.5 acres on Chesley Hill, been there for 50 years. I didn't tell you how much I paid in taxes for 50 years, but I can share this with you. I don't want to have two and go in and have a campground. How long do you think before I went to go and have two campground lot on my property? Let me tell you what. Somebody buy that property, take the 6 acres and put 6 houses there. That's going to be easier than getting an EPA through the government, DES, all that stuff to get a new campground built. Let me tell you, they ain't getting built because of all the regulations for that. So if I have somebody that comes, I have my recreational vehicle, I'm not sleeping in the thing. All of a sudden, my son comes from Maine and he's going to be in, or my daughter from South Carolina, and she brings her RV there. Now we have 2 on my 6 acres. Who's going to say who slept in which one? I got to tell you, I know that it could go back to a committee and be done it more, but I got to tell you, more restriction isn't telling, and I just saw it on the site, welcome to the city of Rochester and how good it is here and how much we value you and want you to be pleasant. Just like a small town participant, you know, that's pride in the people. I think what we're doing is complaint-based ordinances. I don't think that's the right thing. God bless.
Thank you.
Tyler Emerson on Brock Street. Jim Grant was saying, he walks around, he bought his house, he walks around and he sees a camper. Well, he bought his house, that guy didn't have a camper, right? Then he buys a camper and he's upset about it. So then he walks down the street and there's another guy that has a camper. Are we all just living to just make complaints because we don't like what someone has on their property? Maybe I don't like jungle gyms. And I see 4 people in my neighborhood that have kids and they have jungle gyms. Am I going to put a complaint in for that? And then he references living in the camper can be like a health hazard or a safety hazard. I just did the math. If you did 15 days times 20 years, that's only 300 days. You're telling me that camper isn't good enough for 300 days? You know what? You know, it doesn't make sense. And then if you're in the camper, but you don't use any water, you don't use the bathrooms in it, but you use it at your house, like you go in and go to the bathroom or shower in the house, but you just have it hooked up to electricity, how is that making anything worse? And then I had another point, I just lost it, but yeah, it comes down to like, it sounds like he's more triggered about it because he's seeing more campers. You know, if you want to have what you want on your property and you want to put a camper in your middle of your backyard, who am I to say I don't like that? You know, maybe I don't like Toyotas, and I don't like that 3 people have Toyotas in my property or near my property. They need to get forward. When does the complaint stop? When does the reality come back to you got a property because you bought a property or you bought a house? Where's your rights lost? You know, where's our constitutional or freedom of expression? You know, who cares if 3 neighbors next to me, each of them have a camper? Get over it. You don't like it? Move. You can sell your house. The market's good right now. Sell it, buy somewhere else. Thank you guys for your time. I really hope you look into that and just really look at the rights that people are getting taken away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm still human. I'm still Ward 6 Ward Clerk in exile. I am delighted to see how many people from the public showed up to the city council meeting tonight to participate and express their opinions and ask questions. Usually we don't have this many people. And some of the people who've come up here tonight have expressed surprise at how many regulations that we have in the city and how these regulations are ever on the increase. One person who was up here described it as eye-opening. And I would like to invite these people who have been here tonight to come back in the future. Because the way that you find out what's actually happening in the city is by keeping an eye on the city council. All of the city council agendas and agenda materials are available on the web. All the city council meetings can be viewed on the web. All the city council meetings, well, the ones that aren't secret, are open to the public. You can come in the second Tuesday. No, it's the first Tuesday and the third Tuesday of each month, with certain exceptions for elections. You can come in and you can watch the sausage being made. If you value freedom, if you want to stop ridiculous laws from getting passed, you have to watch what the council is doing. An old friend of mine once said that the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. So you've got to watch what's going on. Citizenship is more than just voting every couple of years. Real citizenship is about watching what your government's doing and participating. So everyone who came tonight, I encourage to watch what the council is doing and become an active and participating citizen. Thank you.
Hi, Carol Petrosevich again. Thank you for having me. On December 5th, the Codes and Ordinances had a meeting, and the Inspector Jim Grant had a PowerPoint presentation that outlined a number of complaints. It was like a pie chart, and I was just wondering if that could be included in the meeting minutes. I couldn't really see it very quickly on the video, but it might shed some light on what we're doing here tonight. I think that creating new ordinances based on people's complaints is not really the right way to go, but they should always be listened to. I do agree with that. We are a community and we want to work as a community to solve the issues. Director Grant said the goal of reviewing the code compliance complaints each month is to give residents an opportunity to learn more about regulations that are in place. And I really thank him for educating the people because I didn't know half of what he had said. I would like to plant a seed. If there's so many regulations that no one knows what they are, maybe we should regulate less. People are honest and they really want to obey the laws. Overregulation sets the public up for failure. In 302.4, they're talking about the weeds, regulating the grass height. We all agree that people don't like eyesores. And what I've learned about the safety with grass is keeping the grass low to avoid ticks. At that particular meeting, they were talking about rats, and that was the reason to cut the grass, and I've never read anything about that. But I have learned that rats do like to live in the sewers, because there's plenty of food and water. And I don't think that's going to change by making any regulations. That particular meeting did some chicken regulations or something. But one thing about the chickens, though, they said you can't sell your eggs. So I guess apparently there's like a certain number, I think it said under 10 chickens at your house. But guess what? If you have any eggs left over, why would we stop kids from like selling their 1 dozen of eggs that are left over to their neighbor? You're teaching this kid the freedom and the independence of how to, create, learn a little income and learn about living, sustainable living. And I just thought that ordinance was just really weird. If you have such a small amount of chickens, you're not going to have many eggs left. Why would you deny a kid that right? I think a better solution about the grass height, though, would be to work with your neighbor. We don't know if our neighbor's struggling with cancer. We don't know if they're not even home for a period of time because they're down in another state taking care of their parents who have cancer. And as a neighbor, because I know when I walked my dog, I would see someone that had long grass, and I would leave them a note. And you know what? We can all just say, offer to help. I'll bring the weed whack over because we don't want to use the lawnmower so we don't get caught in something if there's under the grass. I understand. But we can work together as a community. We don't need regulations. We self-regulate. And I'm not sure why there's so many complaints, and so I'm looking forward to seeing those notes. Maybe it'll enlighten me a little bit. We always have this opportunity to be that good neighbor, and we always have to keep in mind that our property is our house, our yard, everything on it is ours. And I know it's not really mine; it's God's. But being good stewards. But I mean, you know what I mean. So we just have to remember to be good stewards of it. And if our neighbor is not doing it and you don't like the look of the trailer, then go tell them. And maybe they'll work with you and put up a tree or put something on it so it doesn't look as ugly for you. But really, what's on our property is our property. We have to remember that we have the gift of free will, and that gift also is to self-regulate. So I do feel bad that many complaints have come in, and I feel bad that it sounds like Jim Grant is the one who's getting them. I feel bad because nobody wants to listen to complaints. But we can't regulate based on complaints. We can work as neighbors and build up our community. Let's focus on that. Thank you.
I'm going to be quick. Ed Feliciano, Chestnut Hill Road, Rochester. I want to thank all of you. You know, that's a tough job to be up there. I've been in Rochester 53 years, been in business. I'll be 40 years this January in Rochester. I love Rochester. When I started my business, everybody told me, go to Portsmouth, you'll never make it in Rochester. And Rochester's just been great to me and the people. And they tried to get me to run for council many years ago, and I wouldn't do that job. You couldn't pay me enough for what you guys have to go through. So I do appreciate you guys sitting up there and listening to people what they're doing. Regulations, it's funny, I've been 40 years. I started off in Portland Street, some of you know. And to this day, I would never get approved to have a 1-car, 2-car operation on Portland Street like I did 40 years ago. And I stayed in Rochester. And because the city worked with me and they used common sense, the regulations worked. When I went to Chestnut Hill Road, same thing, was in zone, common sense, worked with the planning board. Everything went, and I've been there now 27 years. So I just want to thank you guys and ladies for sitting on the council. And I personally think you do a good job. I don't come to a lot of these meetings, which is good, but I do guys watch everything on TV every time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Katie Anderson, Flat Rock Bridge Road. I actually came here tonight mainly because I had seen on Facebook that there's going to be like regulations on the backyard chickens, which I do have. I don't sell them, but when I have encountered having roosters, I do process them in my own yard. I've never had any issues with my neighbors. I've talked to them. I've had chickens for 2 years, and quite frankly, they like watching them. So I just came to speak on that behalf that my neighbors enjoy the chickens, and sometimes when I do have extra eggs, I give them to them. I personally don't usually sell them. If they give me money, I won't turn it down. But I just wanted to put that out there that sometimes it's just kind of a hobby, and I don't get a lot of eggs. I just really enjoy my fluffy friends. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Tom Kaczynski, Whitehall Road, and happy state rep representing District 5. And I'm happy for the same reason that Human is happy. It's great. It's great to see people here to get involved with the government, because usually there's only a handful. But it's wonderful. They could see exactly the pros and cons of how you get treated here. Now, when you get up to this podium, you take the risk that you could get criticized from above or corrected, and usually you don't have a chance. Luckily, you folks had a second chance today. Last month, I spoke here about the Catholic Charities Project on Old Dover Road, and I mentioned possibilities of illegal immigrants. And comments from above said, this is not true. This is New Hampshire Catholic Charities. It's different. Well, I could have answered that right that night, but I wasn't able to. You look at the webpage of New Hampshire Catholic Charities, and right in the front, it says Immigrant Legal Services. Now, most people that are obeying the law don't need lawyers. Just saying. I was reading an article in the paper this, maybe it was a week ago, talking about parking in Rochester and the possibility of putting up meters and charging people for this. It's going to be studied, and I don't really see the need. It's always mentioned we need more revenue, and I got to say why, or ask why. What wasn't mentioned recently at Finance Committee meetings is how much we have in the undesignated fund balance. Now, a lot of citizens don't realize what this is, but it's money collected exceeding the cost of running this government. And I call it overtaxation. But they might not realize that it's, I don't know what, 28 million, 30 million? I don't know, because we haven't been privy to getting these figures. But it is our money, because our money was confiscated. In fact, you know, maybe if you gave it back, everybody might get a couple thousand. I think that would come in pretty handy to a lot of people in this city. So to ask for more is really unnecessary. And you just got to wonder also why your taxes go up every year in Rochester with this slush fund here. And back to the codes and ordinances, as was mentioned, there's plans to regulate chickens here. And it's used as a rodent problem. Now, when I attended that meeting, I don't know, I didn't hear of an epidemic of cases of these problems. And as I said there, if it's one case, I think it's ridiculous to be adding any ordinances. And as Councilor Walker brought up, the health ordinance covers this. There is no need for any ordinance with chickens. If somebody's causing a health problem here, you have the ability to go after them. So, again, we don't need any additional regs. And this grass height deal, again, that was said to be a rodent problem. Is it a rodent problem if you got hay? If you got a piece of land, you got a hay field there? I never heard of such a thing. You know, if somebody neglects their lawn, you might be a neighbor, you might not like it, you might not enjoy looking at it, but for those of us who believe in the Constitution, you got your property rights, and you could paint your house purple, you could let some shingles fall off, or let your grass grow. That's the way it is, and if somebody doesn't like it, they ought to buy the property. Now, this has failed in the past, this same plan here. So I hope it will just fade away. And again, the citizens spoke. They want less taxes, less regulation, and more freedom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Stewart, Shaw Drive again. I was just calling to reiterate that actually the Amazon got brought up. I lived there 8 years in a camper so I could save money to buy my property, and I've been in my property ever since. They're not unsafe homes. And And I'm against any regulation that regulates the way I should live on my own property, including the thing with chickens, because I do got chickens too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Rice, 10 Rod Road. For several months, I have asked why our city attorney is not required to do a monthly report just like all the other department heads. It can be done so that it doesn't reveal a lot of information, and I think it should be done. I'm a little concerned over this RV issue as it relates to the property that the Rochester Fairgrounds owns. I view this as the third end around. The first being the zoning, the second, the nonprofit status, and now this. And I guess it was clarified that they're allowed to have 30 days a year. Well, if they want to have events, they could easily exceed that 30 days in having people come in. And I'm just a little curious as to how this is all playing out and the actual underlying intention of all of this. My next comment has to do with our tax rate, as far as I know, has not been set. And that brings up the point that our county tax was due on December 17th, and I'm hoping that that was paid so that we don't encumber any fines with that. And I guess I'm going to let you guys off easy because it is the holiday season. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tiffany Monahan, Dry Hill Road. I'm really interested in these grass ordinances and the ordinances about chickens. I run a little homestead, my husband and I, and we have cattle that we rotationally graze, so obviously in those situations, grass is gonna grow pretty tall. Chickens too, we're in agricultural, so it doesn't necessarily affect us, but I've been encouraging people to have their own micro-food systems. I'm sure we don't remember all that long ago during COVID when you would go to the grocery store and things would be empty. I think in a time where our systems are so delicate and impacted by something like a disease, we need to be more prepared and encouraging those around us to be prepared as well. And I think ordinances like these with grass height regulations and as well as the chickens under the guise of rodents, which it sounds like are covered during another regulation underneath the health codes, maybe this isn't what we need. Maybe we need to be making it easier for people to provide for themselves, to build a better community and not be depending so much on what's available at the grocery store. I mean, I sold eggs from my farm during those times. People couldn't even buy eggs at the grocery store. I was providing for our neighbors. And I think if I had had a little more help, we could have provided for more people in those times of scarcity. And I think rules like this make it even harder in situations like that. And I don't know that that's really the direction we want to be heading in. I think we want more community-based agriculture in these situations. It would make it much easier for the public when something like that arises again. So just sharing my thoughts on those couple of items. The RV situation, of course, I'm sure everybody got their point across. It wasn't that we felt the law was not, I think it was that we felt that the law was not granting enough freedom over what's currently in place. I understand what you were trying to say is that it is allowing the 15 days, but that really does feel quite restrictive when you're thinking in terms of people wanting to have company. I live on a farm. I have people, my dad comes up from Florida to visit me. Nobody can see a camper on my property. I've got 20 acres plus another 50 in conservation. So who's really going to be complaining about that? Just a couple of thoughts to think about. Thank you.
Thank you. You got her name? Good job. Okay, we'll close the public input, move on to communications from the city manager. This is our presentation, by the way. We'll be taking.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have 2 items for you tonight. First, I'd like to take some time for an update on City Council's goals and strategic objectives. And then after this item and any discussion, I'd like to bring Finance Director Sullivan forward to provide some information to Council on our bidding process. All right, we have the presentation up. So, in sequential order, Council goal number 1, our city supports economic and community development. And I'll go with strategic objective one at a time here. So first objective you developed was to develop a long-term downtown parking roadmap that removes parking as a barrier to growth. An ordinance was just adopted in November, establishing our long-term parking commission to serve in an advisory capacity to the city council and city manager to assist with the development, implementation, and continued monitoring of a comprehensive demand management public parking system throughout the city. The Parking Commission will review and develop recommendations for the ongoing finance and operation of public parking services and facilities, and appointments for its membership will be coming forward soon. I also established the city manager's parking advisory work team, which worked over this past year to help inform decisions in the interim and develop a foundation of recommendations for the Parking Commission to work from once established. Assess childcare adequacy in Rochester and the potential solutions that will meet our capacity and quality needs. The Stratford Regional Planning Commission has reported for the past few years in their regional data snapshot that Rochester has some areas deemed as childcare sufficient and other parts of the city where there are either no licensed childcare providers or are childcare deserts, which means that the number of children under 5 is 3 times the capacity of the licensed providers. As you'll recall, we had a city manager childcare work team that, as part of their scope, conducted a community survey and had facilitated discussions with community childcare partners, which they reported out on last spring. Their report and results can be viewed in the April 9th, 2024 Finance Committee packet. City Council then allocated $200,000 in ARPA funding to stabilize Rochester Child Care's financial position and prevent a significant reduction in community child care services. Since that time, the city continues to be engaged in child care needs in the community and collaborate on this issue. For example, in October, I attended an event at Frisbee on calling for continued change in childcare, where local providers, policy analysts, and partners held a presentation and meaningful discussion on the challenges and opportunities facing the local childcare industry, and the policies and initiatives that can help address them as well. We stay abreast of new data, such as the wealth of information now available through the New Hampshire Early Care and Education Research Consortium, which is housed at UNH's Carsey School of Public Policy. You can find that online. Additionally, Stratford Regional Planning Commission has a regional child care project set for completion this spring, and we look forward to reviewing those findings. A new state law recently went into effect focused on zoning to help promote home-based childcare. And while staff are still finalizing our self-assessment, Rochester's zoning ordinance already appears to be well poised and not being overly restrictive on home-based childcare. Lastly, our recreation department tracks waitlists for our summer camps and vacation camps in terms of another data source. They improved their review processes this year and formalized MOUs with local childcare providers for the use of our pools. Next objective is utilize environmental consultants to identify areas of environmental concern in Rochester. The city has been involved in several conservation easements in the watershed related to drinking water in partnership with organizations such as Southeast Land Trust, or SELT, and a few more are nearing completion, which you'll hear about soon. We continue to have an active conservation commission, and new land conservation efforts are coming forward soon as well. The city is making a significant investment in wastewater treatment upgrades with both funding and staff time to address new limits on pollutants in the treated effluent and regulations for the operation and maintenance of the wastewater conveyance system. The Wastewater Upgrade Advisory Committee has just launched and has the support of numerous consultants as part of that process. Their next meeting is this Thursday, actually. The city continues to identify and pursue remediation on applicable city-owned properties, such as the former DPW building, and supports other projects of environmental concern when appropriate, such as the Gonick Dam's removal and Cocheco River restoration project. We continue to have an active forester and forest management plan for Dominicus Hanson Park and are performing tree care at Squamish-Gonick. This year, we were the first municipality in the state to adopt the new Lead Paint Poisoning and Prevention Control Act. And finally, as a fun fact, another item to be proud of, Rochester banned lead in drinking water service pipes back in 1981, which was 5 years before it became a standard requirement and was banned by the federal government. Identify organizations working to develop and revitalize our downtown and engage with them in person at least 3 to 4 times per year. This year, we have engaged with the Chamber of Commerce and Rochester Main Street on more than one occasion. And while it is part of the city, I believe the Riverwalk Committee and their work on the Overlook project this year would also fall under this objective. Also, I wanted to take a moment to highlight the impact and draw of Rochester Public Library to our downtown and share that last year they had over 100,000 visits, which includes visitors from surrounding towns. And not too far up the road, our arena had over 113,000 people come through the doors last year. Their draw continues to expand and support our local economy. For example, the arena just hosted an international sled hockey tournament. So we had an international tournament right here in Rochester in our arena. Continuing on with this goal, collaborate with the Police Commission and Police Department to identify and support their outreach needs. Collaboration has actively occurred both on outreach and behind the scenes, including Thank a Police Officer and library events, and on employee recruitment and retention efforts. Our Human Resources Department has especially worked closely with the Police Commission this year, which is to the benefit of the department and overall organization. Police Chief Boudreaux has shared that the department feels a tremendous amount of community support, and I wanted to be sure that you heard that tonight. Engage the school board in a discussion on how to optimize shared resources. We've been actively collaborating with the school department and school board on many fronts this year, including counselor participation on the JBC for the new school, reviewing opportunities for shared resources such as legal services, and continuing discussions on transferring care and control of properties, which will continue as they finalize their current facilities plans over the next few months, and the city prepares to accept additional former school buildings. Planning and DPW staff have provided mapping support for their current redistricting or rezoning efforts. And on the recreation side, we've also provided support for their hockey programs at the ice arena, and they have benefited from the community center gymnasium enhancements for their programs. Our administrations are collaborating regularly, and there are frequent communications, especially with finance, human resources, and DPW. Human Resources is also actively working with their team on a health insurance review process, which you'll hear more about a little later on. Conduct research and outreach to identify neighborhoods that are in need of repair and compliance, then utilize community development to promote safe, viable, and attractive neighborhoods through engagement, compliance, and incentives. There have been many discussions on this objective at codes and ordinances meetings, and some of these recommendations have come forward or are coming forward to City Council in the near future, such as this evening. Ongoing and upcoming discussions will include also reviews of complaint data and educational efforts for landlords who have tenants with repeated infractions. Our compliance staff and legal staff also made great strides with junkyards in the city this year. Goal number 2. Our city has affordable housing and supporting infrastructure as that goal. The first objective is assess current housing levels and use data to project longer-term housing needs and develop annual targets for affordable and market rate units. The city continues to support and promote housing projects when possible and remains developer-friendly, especially from a zoning perspective. For example, St. Anselm College came out with a New Hampshire zoning atlas, and Rochester scored very well. Staff have advised that a numeric target to meet long-term needs would be quite large to the point of being unattainable, especially considering the housing shortage in our state. But economic development will be developing recommendations on a methodology for an annual numeric goal, while being mindful that there are many aspects of private development and housing development drivers that are out of our control. Next is set targets for infrastructure needs, including transportation, social, education, and city services. We are continuing to be mindful of growth and associated infrastructure needs, especially regarding utilities, and collaborating with associated partners such as the school department, social service organizations, and Coast. These targets are discussed largely on a project basis through a capital improvements plan and process, where staff present recommendations based on current and projected infrastructure needs, and we will be having the next round of those discussions soon. Additionally, these are set and reviewed in the context of the limitations of our infrastructure and utilities. For example, the discussions on the recommendations for the wastewater treatment upgrades involve growth projections and capacity decisions, and at times the city may enter into developer agreements to secure contributions for impact and upgrades on infrastructure capacity. Attract and facilitate housing developers to invest in housing creation in the city. Our economic development staff frequently meet with and seek to attract new housing developers in addition to fostering existing relationships. A good example of progress on this objective would be Catholic Charities, who will be new to the city and are making a large investment in housing creation in Rochester. Goal number 3, our city serves the homeless community. Enhance efforts to improve well-managed shelter opportunities that seek to provide access year-round. In August, City Council allocated over $306,000 in ARPA funding for the Home for Now shelter to support Community Action Partnership of Stratford County's reestablishment and operations of the shelter, with financial resources to address essential operational expenses and case management. We continue to provide support through the budget process in CDBG, including for Crossroads and My Friend's Place, which has helped to improve and maintain existing year-round shelters. Support program efforts and enhance transitional programs and services in coordination with the established network of related health and social services. It's a good tongue twister there. Our welfare department's community outreach coordinator and welfare department maintain, support, and expand excellent coordination with a network of health and social services along with CDBG in Rochester. We are also supporting and collaborating with newer groups such as the Rochester Mental Health Alliance. And again, Council has allocated significant ARPA funding in support of this objective. The Opioid Abatement Committee has also just posted a request for proposals for opioid abatement strategies to put the settlement funds to work out in programs in the community. And that RFP was developed with this council goal and objective specifically in mind. Proposals are due next month. Research existing needs, resources, and national best practices to determine best next steps for Rochester. This objective also ties into the work of the Opioid Abatement Committee and their RFP, where we are essentially asking for proposals based on what the resource needs are, based on the organizations that are out in the field on the day-to-day. And also, those resource needs will need to be in alignment with the permissible uses of the funds, which is outlined in the proposal. This objective will guide and be part of the upcoming discussions now that we are in the last season of the Willand Warming Center. And also our welfare department's pilot laundry program is in support of this objective, which so far has been successful and is receiving great feedback. Goal number 4, our city maintains financial stability. Work with the state and federal government to secure funding for future upgrades to the wastewater treatment facility. We worked with both Senator Shaheen and Congressman Pappas's offices in support of this objective, and they both supported federal funding for our wastewater infrastructure. The last update we had heard was that Senator Shaheen's funding was moving forward in the Congressionally Directed Spending Process, or CDS for short, and we continue to stay tuned on that process and the budget. Additionally, we secured CDS funding for the Septage Receiving Project and applied for funding for lagoon desludging, although that was not awarded. Utilize historic data and criteria to strategically use unassigned fund balance to stabilize the tax rate. We provide an unassigned fund balance review and make recommendations to the Finance Committee at least on an annual basis, if not more. Staff regularly track and review unassigned fund balance, which continues to naturally increase as Rochester's financial strength improves. and we do not recommend, as a matter of practice, utilizing unassigned fund balance to artificially lower the tax rate, especially in an unsustainable manner, which can create future spikes on the rate. Enhance and support resources for employee retention and attraction. In addition to the last round of adjustments to our classification and compensation systems, we are working on enhancements to our employee assistance program and other offerings. We're performing a health and dental insurance review with the school department, which I mentioned earlier, which will hopefully help with the retention and could potentially free up some dollars in our existing budget to the city for other benefits that could be offered if desired. For example, vision, paid family medical leave, and others funding towards dental contributions. We are providing new and numerous offerings through our employee recognition and wellness committees, which continue to expand participation. We've just hired a new HR generalist, which is now allowing human resources to properly handle recruiting and be more proactive with postings, calls, candidate and hiring manager engagement. Human Resources is also working on the implementation of our HRIS system that will allow for an interactive system working with candidates and staff, create efficiencies in the department, and create an onboarding process that will create a more welcoming atmosphere to the city. Goal number 5, our city sustains and improves its infrastructure. Develop a list of prioritized objectives for infrastructure based on projections for future growth and anticipated regulatory requirements compared to the current status. Again, this is addressed as part of our CIP program and process typically, and is related especially for our wastewater treatment upgrades and process. Large capital upgrades will also be necessary on the drinking water side over the next decade, which we are already preparing for and working towards. We will need to continue to be mindful of growth and including room for expansion in our infrastructure improvements, which you're already seeing in the wastewater upgrades process. Evaluate viability of capital reserve funds or equivalent mechanisms for wastewater and water improvements to meet new and strict regulatory requirements. Compare raising rates to debt and funding projects and mitigate rate increases. As you saw earlier tonight, we just completed our rate review. And once those are through, once those discussions are through and the votes occur, we can then move to reviewing the potential for capital reserve funds. We do have an existing mechanism with system development fees, and mitigation can be and will be challenging since capital expenses are greater than the number of new users in Rochester. But capital reserve funds as an additional mechanism are worth exploring, and we'll continue to explore. Evaluate fees and framework for businesses and housing developments to improve or expand water, sewer, and transportation. As mentioned previously, we have system development fees and also utilize developer agreements where appropriate. Recent examples of application in support of this objective include Wadley Falls and 19 Olgonic Road developer agreements. And then finally, analyze the changing energy landscape and identify less expensive and renewable energy resources for the Rochester community. Finally is the last item. Progress on this objective includes that DPW successfully installed a solar array on the community center. Council recently approved changes relative to the solar property tax exemption. And in the future, you can expect the discussion on community power to be revisited at upcoming finance meetings. This concludes the goals update, and I welcome your questions, comments, or discussion.
Councilor DeJavois, you got a question? No? Okay. All right, I'm sorry. All right, here are no questions. We'll move on to part 2.
Is that a question?
A comment?
It's kind of a comment, yeah, but that's great. Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to see, I think multiple times I heard about that laundry program. Is there going to be some kind of report at the end just to see how many people benefited from that or, took advantage of it? Or, I mean, I think that's a great thing that the city's done, so.
Yes, absolutely. And I have some preliminary numbers. Again, it's still a pilot, and we still have. Okay.
I just didn't know if that was a plan to put that out, because I think that's a great thing.
Yes.
Yes, Councilor
Since you're
DeJavois.
dying for me to ask a question. First, I'll say it's in the packet, 26 in October and 11 in November.
Nice.
A lot of great progress. Thank you. We heard a lot of the positives. If there's one goal that needs more attention, what would it be? I mean, is there any of these goals that has not progressed as much as you would like, or that we need to be focusing on more?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'd like to ponder that a little bit more, maybe report out on my next report, if that works for you.
Good answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. All right, part two. Thanks,
Okay.
Nice presentation, that was fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. And now Finance Director Sullivan has some information for you on our bidding process.
So I wanted to give an update or essentially a process of information of our bid process. Because you did receive something that criticized the process itself. We do have a very robust bid process, and the City Ordinance 740 regulates the thresholds of the bid process. If it's $15,000 or above, we're required to go out to competitive bid. However, there are exceptions to those rules. We can use the State of New Hampshire bid list. Other bid lists that have been presented to me that I've agreed to in the past has been the Massachusetts state bid list. We have sole source vendors. We have standardization of equipment waivers. We have a lot of things that we can use as exceptions. One of the things that's happened post-COVID is the amount of bid responses has really dropped significantly. And I've never been able to figure out, is it something in our process? Do we make our bid process too onerous for vendors to be interested in it? Is it easier to go a quotations process? Because it isn't in the best interest of the city if we do a bid process and we get one bid, and we see that a lot. So we've been doing more with waivers, and there is a process for that. The department head does have to write up a summary statement. They have to go into detail on why they need the bid waiver, and I have the authority to review that and either approve it or deny it. So what you see, what we display on the city website, and I want to show that to you, is the bids that we approved to, or the bids that we decided we were going to go out to bid on. So essentially, the internal work product is on our bid list. And what that is we have, every time a bid comes in that we say, okay, yes, this will go out to bid, we automatically assign a bid number and the name of the bid. That's more so for the bidders to find the bid and know how to respond to it versus a list that needs to be audited. The auditors don't really look at this. This is kind of our internal process. But what I want to show you, and here's the main city landing page. If you go right here to bids, and you want to see, let's see all closed bids, or we'll see all bids. And we're just going to look at, the bids are done in calendar year, so we're 2024. And when you look at this, there's a lot of bids, and they should be in sequential order. Some of them aren't. But there was a big gap, and that gap was noticed, and it was questioned. And I welcome that question because it serves a good point that we need to take a better look at our bid process. But in this case, what happened, we automatically assigned the bid numbers, and then I made a decision on several of them that, you know, after we assign the bid number, to go the quotations route instead of the bid route. So the account clerk in my office that manages these didn't recycle those old bid numbers, because this is only a representation of what went to bid, not what we didn't put out to bid. And I have a list of that, and I'm prepared to answer that question when it comes up too. So all we did for this exercise is there was a number sequence. That was an accident based on the account clerk misstepping and not keeping the sequential order. There were several in here in sequential order that I made the determination the bid process isn't going to yield anything better than if we pursued the quotation process, and we have a better chance on pursuing the quotation process than the bid process. So it can be daunting to go through this, and it can be confusing, and you can surmise that, oh, if there's a sequence number missing, then something's not being shown or something not being displayed. But, you know, that wasn't the intention. That wasn't the intention at all. The intention is to make sure we make the departments do what they can to get the best prices for whatever it is they're buying. But I also want to show you the results of the bids that I waived here, what they were, and I just want to walk through it. Let's look at this sidewalk tractor. The DPW department contacted 6 companies, and they only got 1 response. But at least that demonstrates an effort to reach out and try and work the phones to see if vendors are interested in bidding. And this, I'm satisfied in this decision that we didn't go to bid because we worked a little bit harder to confirm that no one else was interested in bidding or wouldn't even respond to our request. And that's a more common thing. Vendors just don't respond. So that's a good example of why this was a good decision. The other one is a front end, as a loader. And there's really only 2 companies nearby, Milton Cat and this United Construction. But again, they reached out to 4, and they got 2 responses. This is a truck. Bid 210 was some type of truck with a, I don't know if it was a 1-ton or a service body. Again, the number of contacts that were made and the number of no responses. So this kind of serves as, I think it's better on these types of vehicles especially to assign the department to work that a little bit, do a little bit more due diligence. It takes a little bit longer, and it is a lot of work and a lot of follow-up for the departments to maintain this, but they're willing to do it. And the last one is the 1-ton dump truck. You can see the number of reach-outs, the number of no responses, and only 2 responded to the quotations. So if we had gone the bid process, we may have gotten 1 response, we may have gotten 0 on some of these. So that's a process that I want to continue, but I do want to bring back this discussion to the Finance Committee maybe in January to start talking about some adjustments to the bid process, because we have it as a sealed bid, and our whole process is essentially modeled after the federal government. And, you know, it's great if we're buying 7,000 hammers or 10,000 seats. It's a sealed bid. The low bid automatically gets it. But what we're dealing with is typically requests for proposals. A lot of things are complicated. A lot of the vehicle stuff that we do are customized to how our DPW wants that. So it's not as easy as putting out, you know, the quotation or the bid, the RFP and the seal bidding, just getting the results and picking the lowest. So we do need to make some adjustments with that. This was a good opportunity to really think about this again, and I look forward to coming back and continuing the discussion with the Finance Committee. If there's any questions?
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director? All right, hearing none. Thank you. Very good. Communications from the Mayor. Okay, we got about 30 minutes to go. No. Hey, obviously downtown, you heard it from a couple of people tonight, that downtown looks fantastic. Great work, Public Works, putting up the lights and the decorations. City looks really good. Tree lighting ceremony was absolutely fantastic. I don't know if you've ever really looked at that tree. That's a 35, 40-foot blue spruce. Beautiful. That's a big deal. It's donated by the Tor Williams family on Chestnut Hill Road. And again, thanks for the all city staff for helping out with that. And obviously the parade was great. We got a lot of people that walked or were in a vehicle for the parade, so it was good. And on the good news, kind of ties into the city manager's report on affordable housing. As you all know, the governor a few years ago in his budget in 2022 came up with Invest New Hampshire funds, where you can invest in funds to help with affordable housing issue. Well, the business, I'll get the name wrong, BAA for the state came up with housing champion communities based on how the communities took advantage of the housing funds. we're one of the communities in the state that was awarded that as a housing champion. And Mike Scala, and I believe the planning director will be up there tomorrow at the state to receive that award. So I know I'm a broken record up here, but, you know, we scored 99. 99 is what we scored at the state level. So we're doing a fantastic job on the affordable housing issue. And I want to wish you all Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and Happy Holidays. And I'll turn it over to department reports. Any questions, comments on department reports? You got your answer on the clothing, washer and laundry?
Oh, kind of. That's the number of cards, not the number of people served.
Without any objection, I adjourn the meeting.